Chapter 1707. This kid is really something. If he participates in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament, I'm afraid Su Yi's name will spread throughout the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Lin Shuangping's eyes glowed with anticipation. The weapon-wielding elder had already put the Scarlet Fire Divine Blade back into the box and handed it over to the people from Lingyue Peak. Tian Chong stood up, wiped his teary eyes, and handed the Divine Blade to Su Yi. Both sides of the Divine Blade had already been sharpened. As soon as the box entered his hand, Su Yi could feel a murderous chill in his heart. What a good dagger! Because of the blood patterns on the dagger, Su Yi could feel an extremely familiar blood energy in his mind. Whoosh! The Scarlet Fire Divine Blade's body was like a flowing fire. The fire patterns circled around it like a nebula. It was extremely dazzling. Upon closer inspection, killing intent filled the air. It was also awe-inspiring. It was truly an extremely outstanding divine weapon. The Divine Blade pierced through the air, leaving no trace of scarlet fire. Spatial ripples appeared in front of Su Yi. To think that such a small blade could possess such great power. Su Yi sighed inwardly. It was indeed a high-tier, profound, grade magic weapon. The little divine blade that was already alive circled around Su Yi. Then, it gently tapped Su Yi's forehead and quietly laid in Su Yi's hand, allowing him to control it. It's indeed alive. It seems like it has already recognized you as its master. The Iron Soulfish praised. So fast. This little dagger was born from blood energy. Since you have the blood dragon poison, there's naturally blood energy in your profound veins. Since your smell is similar, this little thing naturally recognized you as its master. Su Yi nodded heavily. Tian Ho couldn't hold back his excitement and grabbed Su Yi tightly. At the same time, he handed over the 2 heavenly flame elixirs that he had obtained from refining weapons and pills to Su Yi. Su Yi, this little divine blade was born because of you. This time, it has also recognized you as its master. This is the least I can do for you. You have given Lingyue Peak too much. I, Tian Ho, am unable to repay you. These 2 heavenly fire pills are also master's idea. Su Yi laughed heartily as he accepted the pills. He was pleasantly surprised. Adding the pills he had received before, he now had a total of 5 profound grade heavenly flame pills. In the future, it would be a good thing if he still had such a magic tool to protect himself. Tian Wu, Lingyue Peak's business is also my business. Of course, I will do it without hesitation. What about me? At this time, a firm and heavy voice came from behind him. It was slightly haggard, but it did not lose its magnetism. Su Yi turned his head. It turned out to be Jun Haoyan, who had been released. His figure was slender, and his temperament was still elegant and modest, with a hint of forbearance and restraint. He was handsome and had an extraordinary bearing. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Jun Haoyan carefully. The Jun Haoyan in front of him was no longer as gloomy as before. His expression was more calm and determined. Su Yi thought that after this, Jun Haoyan's state of mind should have changed greatly, so he blurted out, "Ha! Your business is naturally my business." Jun Haoyan smiled bitterly and shook his head. He looked at Su Yi and solemnly bowed deeply to Su Yi. He said, "Su Yi, it was you who gave me a second life. This is a new life. The Jun Haoyan of Jutian Palace of the past no longer exists." After saying that, a trace of sadness flashed in Jun Haoyan's eyes. In the past, he had carried too heavy a burden. Suddenly, he could follow his heart without restraint, but Jun Haoyan had lost his direction in an instant. It's just that the world is so big, and I don't know where home is. Jun Haoyan sighed. Hearing that Jun Haoyan had the intention to leave, Tian Ho's eyes suddenly lit up. "How about senior brother Haoyan? You come back to Lingyue Peak with me first. Lingyue Peak has fewer people, so it's suitable for cultivation. I'm sure Master will be very happy." Tian Ho's eyes lit up. Because of Su Yi, he actually didn't have much malice towards Jun Haoyan. Instead, he had always admired his talent and temperament. Jun Hao-yin was about to decline when Long Pasan walked over and waved his hand with a frown. He said in a muffled voice, "Hao-yin, don't listen to Tian Ho's nonsense. From now on, Lingyue Peak will become the #1 peak of Juqin Palace. How will it be peaceful? The mountain gate will definitely be trampled to pieces. You must not go." Tian Ho couldn't help but scratch his head. The current Lingyue Peak was definitely at the top of the mountain and had the lofty feeling of looking down on all the other mountains. Back then, Master had said in front of the Lingyue little mansion, "Let me go while I'm still young. I'll be drunk for 100 years, 36,000 feet. Perhaps in the future, Lingyue Peak would really be free." Old Guyue's lofty aspirations would also have someone to show off. Thinking of this, Tian Ho couldn't help but laugh foolishly. "Hao-yin, you're bored of Juqin Palace anyways. Why don't you come back to the Heavenly Dragon Continent with me? My Heavenly Rider Branch Palace can be considered a treasure trove. You can have anything you want." Long Pashan's eyes flashed, and a trace of craftiness flashed across his aged face. Sui took a deep breath and looked at Long Pashan's passionate and sincere gaze. He couldn't help but roar in his heart. This old man Long was stealing his disciple. He was clearly taking advantage of the situation and openly robbing. How despicable! At the same time, Long Pasan also noticed Su Yi's gaze and laughed. "Master is nothing, but your disciple is not bad. I don't want to waste him." Immediately, all the elders behind him, Lu Guanjiang of the Taiyan continent, Zhu Jianjun of the Immortal Sword continent, Wu Zhouzi of the Divine Tiger continent, Nie Shuangjue of the Taiqing continent, Lung Wuning of the Central continent, and Lin Shuangping of the Vast Sea all gathered. Lin Shuangping's bright and beautiful face immediately smiled. "Hao-yin, come to my place. The Vast Sea is fun. All right, Su-yi, come too. I'll wait for you at the Vast Sea." After saying that, she looked at Su-yi as if nothing had happened. Su-yi felt that Lin Shuangping wanted him to go to the Vast Sea by all means possible. He couldn't help but feel a little strange. Wu Zhouzi, on the other hand, was shorter in stature. He wore an extremely loose robe from head to toe like a boat. Wu Zhouzi opened his small eyes and jumped up and down. "The Divine Tiger Continent is not bad. Hao-yin, I'll take you to the White Tiger sect for a tour. The Taiqing Continent is also very good. It's also vast and rich in resources. You can have anything you want. If you ask me, why go to the Divine Tiger Continent? Come to the Taiqing Continent. No, still. Go to my Taiyang Continent. Old man Huangfu of the Taixing sect has a good relationship with me. I'll introduce you to him. Even the top factions will give me some face." "Fine. You're all good. I won't say anything." Wu Zhouzi's stubborn temper flared up. He stomped his foot and twisted his neck, no longer speaking. Martial uncles. Chapter 1708. Jun Hao-yin, who had always been dull, seemed to have untied the knot in his heart. In the face of the invitations from the elders of Juqin Palace, he was at a loss for a moment, but he still smiled and felt extremely warm in his heart. Su-yi laughed and handed the pass that Guyue had just given him to Jun Hao-yin. "They don't understand you. In fact, you still want to stay in Juqin Palace, right?" Su-yi said with a smile. Jun Hao-yin suddenly raised his head and looked at the imperial pass in his hand that was emitting a divine aura. His mind was shaken, and his sword-like eyebrows furrowed as he kept shaking his head. This was a certificate that allowed him to choose any elixir or magic weapon in Juqin Palace. The most important thing was that he could get the careful guidance of the highest elder with this thing. It was very possible for him to reach the peak of Juqin Palace in the future. "Su-yi, this. I can't accept it. This belongs to you." Jun Hao-yin's eyes flashed with a trace of urgency. He couldn't accept it no matter what. The elders that were talking animatedly just now instantly stopped their discussions and disputes, and their eyes revealed surprise as they stared fixedly at Su-yi. Su-yi smiled and put the pass into Jun Hao-yin's arms with a calm expression. His bright and dark eyes were full of seriousness. "You need this pass more than I do. This is the key to let you find your way again. Use it to give you a new lease of life. Think about what you want to do, and I have them. That's enough. Sui. Tian Wu's eyes were wet again, and he wiped them hard. He was embarrassed for crying for the second time today. Sui looked at Ah Chu and Li Shiran, who were still rejoicing, completely forgetting about the thrilling experience under the Broken Sword Sea. Today's 4 first places are all thanks to them. Sui's eyes were clear and bright, and he laughed heartily. In an instant, his eyes were burning and full of determination. He missed the Boang sect a little more. The Green Emperor, the Yin brothers, his elder brother, and his sister-in-law suddenly came to his mind. In Sui's heart, people were always the first. If there was no direction and no support, people would always be just a bag of skin. The Overlord sect, this was the true purpose of the establishment. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan's face showed a touch of shame. His eyes fluctuated, and his admiration for Sui increased. Then, he cupped his hands and said in a trembling voice, "Thank you. Thank you. Sui, you are my Jun Haoyan's friend, brother." After listening to the conversation between the two, the elders praised Sui again and again. Even the usually frivolous Long Pasan felt a chill run down his spine and withdrew his casual gaze. Is this boy really only 17 or 18 years old? This level of maturity is a little terrifying. He is always unexpected. One day, he will exceed everyone's expectations. Lung Wuning was a little shocked, and his heart was surging slightly. Lin Shuangping's bright eyes seemed to be filled with endless splendor and expectation. She sighed and said, "Hasn't he exceeded all of our expectations now?" At this time, the entire venue of the front peak of Zhongzhen was extremely noisy. On the high platform, Duanmu Xiaoman had already stood up. Her jade-like body and fragrant skin made her look like an extremely perfect fairy, vast and immortal. Her clothes that were like silk and satin fluttered in the wind, and her flawless charm revealed a peerless beauty that was otherworldly. Her gaze was pure and clear like snow that carried frost, and it was breathtaking and caused others to be fearful and not dare have the slightest intention of disrespecting her. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman released an amazing spiritual pressure, which instantly swept the entire venue. A faint voice resounded through the sky and directly into Sui's ears. "Sui, are you done?" Sui turned around. Under everyone's surprised gaze, Duanmu Xiaoman seemed to be ready to leave, and before she left, she called out to Sui, Okay. After saying that, Sui also felt that he shouldn't have said that. Under the boundless pressure, her cold and beautiful face was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. In front of her, Sui suddenly felt extremely small. That extreme power couldn't be calmed down for a long time, and his heart was fluctuating violently. Being called by such a holy and intelligent woman, Sui felt as if he was falling into the clouds, ethereal and unreal. He unconsciously followed and slowly walked toward Duanmu Xiaoman. "Palace Lord, are you calling Sui to leave?" Long Pasan was a little surprised, but he was even more surprised in his heart. Even Lingyue Peakside was silent for a moment. Everyone was extremely shocked as they watched Sui slowly walk toward Duanmu Xiaoman. "Father," Han Yuro's beautiful eyebrows suddenly furrowed, and her pair of watery eyes surged with boundless anger. Just now, Duanmu Xiaoman's excessive concern for Sui made Han Yuro feel a little uncomfortable, so she whispered to Han Wulong. Han Wulong also began to feel anxious. His tall and burly body pushed through the crowd and took a step forward. The aura of the golden dragon instantly surged around his body, and a mighty aura blasted forward like a thunderstorm. Boom! Stop! After coming back to his senses, Sui was a little confused. He blankly looked at Han Wulong, who called out to him, and said, "Sect Lord Han, what is it?" "Palace Lord Duanmu, do you remember what you promised me under the Sea of Broken Swords?" Under the Sea of Broken Swords, Han Wulong went to rescue Duanmu Xiaoman and Sui. He said that he would let Sui and Han Wulong return to the Infinite Sect when the time came. After returning to the Heavenly Drive River, Han Wulong ran to the back mountain again and again, but he couldn't see Su-yi. This time, the Heavenly Drive Soul competition was finally over. No matter what, he had to take Su-yi away today. Did I promise you? Duanmu Xiaoman slightly tilted her head. Her eyes were arrogant, and in an instant a soul bolt shot out. Dang, dang, dang. Han Wulong quickly retreated. A wave of blood rushed up his head, and his resolute face turned a little pale. With a whoosh, his golden dragon aura was annihilated like a stone sinking into the sea. Sect Lord. A few experts from the Infinite Sect rushed forward. Their eyes were sharp, and they stared straight ahead. Duanmu Xiaoman continued to walk forward slowly. She still didn't put the Infinite Sect in her eyes. Su-yi, do you want to follow me or him? Think carefully. Of course, Su-yi knew this sentence. There were still many things between him and Duanmu Xiaoman that he had yet to clear up. There were still many things to settle in the Heavenly Drive Palace. Seeing that the situation was about to change again, Su-yi's mind raced. He activated the Heavenly Origin Demon Soul in his body and asked Sect Master Han. Sect Master Han, what is the matter that requires me to go to the immeasurable sect? Han Wulong stopped him with his hand and said in a low voice, It's about the commander. Commander? Could it be the Divine Dragon Commander? Su-yi was shocked. His thoughts were running wild. He was the only one who knew about the Golden Dragon. Could Han Wulong be one of the 8 people who opened the secret realm? However, before he could settle the matter with Duanmu Xiaoman, a fire tribute whirlpool rose from under his feet. Su-yi flew over like a phantom. After thinking for a while, Su-yi frowned and let out a long breath. Sect Lord Han, are you talking about this thing? Chapter 1709. Su-yi took out the dragon-scaled jade token given to him by the 5-clawed golden dragon in the Golden Dragon secret realm. It was just a corner, but it emitted an indescribable dragon's might that could shake a person's soul. Han Wulong instantly blocked Su-yi's hand when he saw the surging ancient aura. His pupils constricted as he said, Lord Commander. Han Wulong was about to kneel, but Su-yi quickly helped him up. Everyone present was shocked once again. Even Duanmu Xiaoman and the elders of the Heavenly Command Palace were at a loss of what to do. The Immeasurable Sect's Sect Master, Han Wulong, one of the top forces in the Cloud region, the Immeasurable Sect, and the Sect Master of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea, actually knelt before a 17 or 18-year-old lad. This is simply too shocking. Just what is Su-yi's background? It seems like Han Wulong cares a lot about Su-yi. He has repeatedly contradicted our palace master for Su-yi. From the looks of it, Han Wulong seems to want to kneel before Su-yi. Nie Xuanjua, Long Pas Han, Lin Xuanping, and the rest chattered incessantly. Their eyes were filled with curiosity, and their hearts were filled with endless thoughts about Su-yi. There are too many people here. Sect Master Han, can you wait until I go to the Immeasurable Sect before talking? Su-yi whispered. We can't delay any longer. Long Ku. The Heavenly Wind Ranking Tournament is about to begin. We can't make it in time. Han Wulong was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat. Su-yi's heart trembled slightly. The Heavenly Wind Ranking Tournament was indeed only a few days away. If he went to the Immeasurable Sect, there was no time at all. Moreover, from Han Wulong's attitude, it seemed like there was indeed an urgent matter. How about this? After the Immeasurable Sect ends, we will meet in the Nether region. Before the Heavenly Wind Ranking Tournament, I will discuss it with you properly. All right then, Lord Commander. Han Wulong's broad body was at least twice the size of Su-yi as he spoke to Su-yi. Don't reveal my identity for now. Just treat me as Su-yi. Su-yi felt a little embarrassed when Han Wulong called him that. Subsequently, Han Wulong took out a golden square jade stone and handed it to Su-yi. It had a profound aura, and one could sense that it was rich in space laws of the space. Han Wulong's face twitched. He knew that he had misspoken. Then he looked ashamed. That's it then. Sect Master Han. We'll return to Yuzhou in the future. Han Wulong cupped his hands in embarrassment. He was already extremely excited. Obtaining the answer in his heart was enough to make Han Wulong extremely happy. The rest was left to Guyu. Vice palace 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 palace. Take good care of the immeasurable sect. After saying those words, Duanmu had already disappeared without a trace. Only a string of blue ice crystals floated in the depths of the void, and an endless orchid fragrance lingered in the air. What? Vice palace palace master? Long Passion's eyes fell to the ground. In the distance, Guyue was still immersed in the joy of winning first place. Duanmu Xiaomon's resignation shocked him. His weathered face was filled with shock. Congratulations, Elder Guyue, Su Yi said. Master, congratulations on becoming the Vice Palace Master. Tian Wu, Ah Chu, and the others quickly knelt down and bowed deeply to Guyue. Good boy, this Guyue is above me. For now on. Haha, who asked Ling Yu Peak to take the first place? You should go and fight for it too. Luo Wuya chuckled. Then his eyes lit up and filled with joy. He walked up to Guyue and presented his gift. Subordinate Luo Wuya of the Immeasurable Sect greets the new Vice Palace Master of the Immeasurable Sect. Then, everyone present knelt down and bowed to Guyue. Guyue looked in the direction of Duanmu Xiaoman, his eyes filled with tears of excitement. Guyue thanked the Palace Master. Then, Su Yi saw that everyone was kneeling down. He simply ignited the fire attribute under his feet and chased after Duanmu Xiaoman like a ball of fire. Guyue said loudly, Rise. After getting up, Luo Wuya and the others kept congratulating Guyue. The entire Ling Yu Peak was in high spirits because of this good news. Within a day, he had washed away the humiliation, won first place in 4 competitions, and even became the Palace Master of the Immeasurable Sect. Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman had already walked far away. Luo Wuya stood up and said in a low voice, his eyes flashing. One Palace Master Duanmu, one Han Wulong. Both of them care a lot about Su Yi. Isn't that so? After so many years, only Su Yi can come and go as he pleases. Sai, let's go. Palace Master Gu, I'll return to my Azure Sea sect first. Please take care of the Azure Sea sect in the future, okay? Lin Swamping said faintly. Her delicate and seductive voice echoed throughout the entire place, but her eyes were still fixed on the fire mark that was already far away. While everyone was still in a daze, Han Wulong also shouted, Immeasurable Sect, return to the sect. Immediately, the auras of all the boundless sect's elites spread out. Overflowing gales instantly stirred up a small tornado in the vital chi, which was extremely shocking. Spatial ripples spread out in the air. Instantly, it was as if a heavy rock had been thrown into the air, extremely violent. Father, where's Su Yi? Han Yuro was still shouting from below. She looked very anxious. Li Shiran, Ah Chu, and the others were also confused. Su Yi has something important to do. Don't delay. Rower, do you want to return to the sect with father? Han Wulong stood in the void, returning to his usual fierce self. No, I'm not going back. Han Yuro pouted. Han Wulong naturally knew what Han Yuro was thinking. Su Yi was still here. Han Yuro, who had just fallen in love, was not going to go anywhere. However, it was a critical moment now. The Divine Dragon Commander had been found. It was time to move on to the next step of the plan. Han Wulong frowned slightly. His eyes were like a divine pool, as he said in a deep voice. All right, I haven't returned to the Immeasurable Sect for a long time. There are still many things to do. If you want to see Su Yi, go to Yuzhou to find father. As soon as he finished speaking, Han Wulong's metal attribute surged wildly, causing the entire sky to tremble. Han Wulong and a group of experts rushed in the direction of the Immeasurable Sect as fast as lightning. A powerful gust of wind suddenly swept out. In an instant, no one was there. Vitality gushed out. Only the boundless energy of heaven and earth was left to gather and envelop the surrounding space. Hanyuro was a little dazed. What was wrong with father today? Father, who had always doted on her, actually abandoned her and left first? Hanyuro was suddenly puzzled. She stood there in a daze. Soon, several core figures left. The people in Zhongjin Square left after congratulating Guyue. In the end, Han Yuro pursed her red lips and followed Gyue back to Linghua Peak. Jun Haoyan, who had always been reserved, could not resist Tian Ho's enthusiasm. He also followed them back to Linghua Peak. This series of fluctuations made Gyue happy for the entire night. The entire Linghua Peak was in a state of extreme excitement. Whether it was Li Shiran or Han Yuro who asked Gyue about Su Yi, Gyue replied with a smile, "It's fine. He has something to do at the back of the peak." Chapter 17:10. After the earthquake, there were very few people around. This was the first time Su Yi had a good look at the back of the mountain. It was covered in lush greenery. It had a completely different feeling compared to the front of the mountain. The spiritual qi here was abundant, and the clouds were rosy. It really did feel like a fairyland. There were no traces of the huge fire caused by the mountain guarding array. It was as if the fire had just started. Among the shadows, spiritual beasts flew in 2s and 3s. The cries of the birds and the cries of the beasts set off the tranquility of the mountain. Raising his head, he could even see a few flying barbaric demonic beasts climbing on the peak, looking at the figures below. This makes me want to return to the Balwang sect. Su Yi muttered to himself. Such a scene was incomparably beautiful. With the mist rising from the mountain and the miasma in the forest, the entire back of the mountain was like a toad's palace. The Duanmu Shaoman was like a fairy who had guarded the mountain alone for 1,000 years. Without rushing, Su Yi followed the Duanmu Shaoman's footsteps and walked forward. Along the way, she left behind a fragrant wind that seeped into one's heart. His eyes were filled with the Duanmu Shaoman's beautiful figure. Her graceful figure swayed in front of Su Yi as she walked slowly and gracefully. The faintly discernible gauze dress directly revealed a pair of long legs. It was extremely beautiful. Su Yi had lived 2 lives, but he felt as if he was looking at a fairy. Lu Ruashi had such a temperament, but she was not a fairy. That lass, in the entire world, probably only Su Yi knew how stubborn and heartless she was. Thinking about Lu Ruashi, Su Yi could not help but shake his head and click his tongue. In the end, Su Yi still kept the letter that wanted to kill him. I wonder if that lass will participate in the Tianfeng ranking tournament. At this moment, the faces of a few ladies appeared in Su Yi's mind. Yun Qing was like an elf in the forest, while Ling Qinxue had the wildness and gentleness unique to the demon race. The only one who was slightly similar was Shi Susu of Blue Cloud Hall. However, Shi Susu only had an elegant temperament and didn't want to get involved with the secular world. Duanmu Shaoman, who was walking at the front, was very attractive. It's hard to imagine that I'm actually on top of her. Su Yi's heart trembled slightly. However, he had already returned with her. He didn't know if Duanmu would settle the score with him. Actually, Su Yi really wanted to tell Duanmu that he didn't mean it. However, he glanced at Duanmu, whose eyes were as cold as ice. Su Yi lowered his head and didn't feel like talking anymore. Just like that, Duanmu didn't say anything, and Su Yi didn't ask anything either. The two of them walked together, and after walking for a long distance, they finally saw an extremely tall, pure jade palace. Below it, there were groups of relatively low houses. Compared to the palace, the houses had simple carvings, just like an ice palace. Just by looking from afar, Su Yi could feel the coldness of the heaven-driving shrine. He couldn't help but shiver. A sneeze caused Duanmu Shaoman to finally stop. "Have you seen enough?" Duanmu Yu asked. Su Yi instantly understood that Duanmu had seen everything. His face instantly burned, and he didn't know what to say. "Do I look good?" Duanmu turned around. Her tall nose matched her snow-white skin, and her pair of moon-like eyes were filled with arrogance and coldness. "Yes," Su Yi subconsciously replied. However, he immediately regretted it, feeling that he was too rash. The atmosphere suddenly froze, and Duanmu Shaoman once again opened her red lips. "You are the first person who dares to talk back to me in front of everyone." Su Yi guessed that Duanmu was indeed here to denounce him. He coughed and said that Jun Haoqian is also quite outstanding. Su Yi, who was incomparably flustered, felt for the first time that he, who had lived 2 lives, was nothing in front of this fairy-like Duanmu Xiaoman. However, you still came back with me in the end. That's pretty good. Sui nodded and smiled awkwardly. However, he was cursing in his heart. This daddy has been wise all my life and has killed ruthlessly. Just now, I was in the limelight in front of everyone, and now I'm back with a woman like you. You tell me to leave, and I leave. Do you think I don't have any face? That's pretty good. Pretty good, my ass. Actually, he was extremely regretful in his heart. Why did he come back with Duanmu? How could he be so shameless? Right at this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's pure white robes fluttered, as if she was dancing. In the next second, she was directly in front of Sui. The tips of their noses were less than a millimeter apart. Coming back with me, do you feel wrong? Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes seemed to see through Sui. Her soft voice was like 100 claws scratching at one's heart, so charming that it made one's nose bleed wildly. This has nothing to do with being wronged. Okay, this is a man's dignity. He really wanted to say this in his heart. However, looking at Duanmu Xiaoman's unblinking eyes, he still chose not to say anything. Their eyes met, and a faintly discernible body fragrance lingered around Su Yi's body, causing Yi to have wild thoughts. However, he quickly erased these thoughts from his mind. Duanmu Xiaoman just stared at Yi without moving. Yi immediately felt that this woman was a little terrifying. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and for the first time, he felt his heart beating wildly. Whoosh! He took a deep breath in his heart. Fire attribute Yuan Qi rose, and his figure rapidly retreated. He said, Palace Master Duanmu, what exactly do you want? Duanmu Xiaoman saw that Yi was somewhat enlightened. Her expression gradually became gentle, and her eyes fluctuated. In the blink of an eye, she said coldly, Are you feeling better? Much better. Just now, the 9 transformation God refining pill helped me a lot. I can already recover on my own. Immediately, Yi said to Duanmu Xiaoman, Thank you for the pill you asked the Su family to send over. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to make it in time for the Heaven Riding Soul competition. At this moment, although Yi's meridians were still damaged, with the support of the Origin Supreme technique and the spiritual liquid, he believed that he would be able to fully recover in less than 3 days. Duanmu Xiaoman ignored Yi's gratitude and said in a low voice, So you are also so desperate for others. What? Yi did not understand. In the blink of an eye, Duanmu Xiaoman's attitude became extremely cold again. She put away her attitude and spoke like a stranger. All right, you are indeed a freak. Go over there and see your family first. After that, come and find me at the Command Divine Palace. After saying that, a whirlpool rose from the bottom of Duanmu Xiaoman's feet. A vast and mighty pressure swept out. In an instant, a whirlpool rose in the forest. When he looked up again, Duanmu Xiaoman was already gone. Looking at the Command Divine Palace in the distance, Yi felt a little guilty. Duanmu Xiaoman had always been unpredictable. Just now, she changed her attitude in an instant. Yi was still a little uncertain in his heart. Forget it. Let's go and see Grandpa first. Then, Yi came to the low-rise house. As soon as he walked into the courtyard, he could hear the clamor of voices. Yi, you're back. Yi is back. Chapter 17:11. Young Master is back. The courtyard was immediately filled with noise like a tidal wave. The maids and servants immediately stopped what they were doing and looked at Yi with surprise and joy. It felt like a lifetime ago. Yi had dreamt of this scene in countless nights and dreams, but he never thought that he would meet the Su family in Yuqin Palace. When Yi entered the courtyard, he found that the Su family was neat and tidy. Everyone was in good spirits. It was as if he had returned to the Su family in Barbarian City. A warm feeling welled up in his eyes. Hearing the familiar voice and looking at the familiar figure, Yi's breathing quickened uncontrollably. Family would always be Yi's biggest weakness. After all, he had been through so many bloody tragedies. Yi was very glad that he made the decision to move the Su family with Yuqian Palace. At this moment, when the group of people saw Su Yi's appearance, they were extremely shocked at first. Then, they exploded into earth-shattering shouts and quickly surrounded Su Yi, including Xiao Lan, who was slapped by him, and the group of servants who saw Su Yi. They were so excited that they were speechless. Su Yi was also very happy. Looking at these familiar people who appeared by his side again, Su Yi asked, "Are you all well?" "Good, very good. This place is self-sufficient. Also, Immortal's sister often brings us some pills. My body is stronger than the other. The environment here is very good. The air is also good. Master and old master like it very much." The young maid looked at Su Yi with eyes full of golden light. Su Yi, who was like a god, planted the seed of worship in the hearts of countless Su family members. Ever since Su Yi's battle in Barbarian City, Su Yi protected the entire Su family. So the title of that brat, the Scourge of Barbarian City, no longer existed. Savior, Guardian God, was Su Yi's code name in the Su family. The young maids and attendants in front of him were all talking at once. There were also many old and weak women, children who were attracted out. When they saw Su Yi, they were so excited that tears flowed out. All the Su family disciples wanted to kneel down when they saw Su Yi, but Su Yi quickly helped them up. At this time, Su Yi seemed to see a familiar woman's figure in the crowd. She was holding a broom in her hand. Su Yi looked up. It was Su Jiao, who was kicked to the ground by him back then. Su Yi smiled bitterly and thought, "I didn't expect that she would also follow me to Yuqian Palace, and I didn't expect her to be the first one. Forget it. The past is the past. As long as I turn over a new leaf, family is better than others." The Su family went through so many twists and turns, and she was still able to stay by the side of the Su family. This Su Jiao wasn't as annoying in Su Yi's heart as back then. Today, when Su Jiao saw Su Yi again, she didn't have the slightest bit of fierceness and shrewdness. Her eyes flickered, and there was some fear in her shock. Perhaps the lesson Su Yi taught her back then was too deep. When their eyes met, there was actually some evasion. Everyone's lively mood stopped, and their eyes were wide open. Would Su Yi still be calculative with Su Jiao about the incident back then? Su Yi walked towards Su Jiao. Just the Origin Emperor realm aura on his body directly shook Su Jiao until she retreated repeatedly, as if she was somewhat limp. Her eyes were filled with shock as she looked at Su Yi helplessly. Su Yi. Everyone in the surroundings was instantly dumbfounded and were somewhat at a loss. They saw Su Yi solemnly bowing to Su Jiao and said gently, "Aunt, long time no see." In Su Yi's heart, he didn't care about these trivial matters of the past since long ago, and he only wished for the Su clan to be safe and sound. Su Jiao seemed to have not expected this when she saw this, and her red lips slightly trembled as her nose twitched, and her entire body relaxed as she replied, "Sigh." Instantly, everyone's hearts relaxed. The current Su Yi couldn't be compared to the past, and his mood rose once more. "Where's uncle and grandfather?" "I'm here." Iya, a broad figure with an elegant bearing and refined appearance, swiftly walked out from behind the crowd. He was extraordinary, and he was still conspicuous in the crowd, but compared to before, he seemed to have aged a bit. It was precisely Su Yi's uncle, the substitute patriarch of the entire Su clan, Su Jingting. Looking at Su Yi, Su Jingting's hands tightly grabbed onto Su Yi's arm, and he was moved to the point of being speechless. The servants, women, and children by his side were secretly wiping away their tears. At this moment, they were extremely happy to see Su Yi again. More than a year had passed since they parted in Barbarian City. Looking at the white hair on Su Jingting's temples, Su Yi couldn't help but feel heartache, and he choked with sobs. "Have you been well these days?" "Good. Very good. Su Yi, it's all thanks to you for bringing us to Yuqian Palace. After you left, Sacred Mountain came a few more times." Su Jiao sobbed continuously, and her entire body trembled as she said, Many experts came to Barbarian City, and they all said they wanted to search Barbarian City, and they even said they wanted to track you down. Are they trying to exterminate my Su clan? Su Yi's eyes trembled. When he was in Chaos Region, Sacred Mountain actually openly came to a tiny barbarian city. What kind of bullshit first-rate sect is this, doing such rotten things all day long? When Sacred Mountain was mentioned, Su Yi's blood and anger instantly started to surge, and he clenched his teeth tightly. Sure enough, Sacred Mountain did a lot of tricks after that. Sacred Mountain. Extreme anger started to linger in his heart, surging violently like a volcano eruption, and the energy emitted from his body instantly made the entire courtyard extremely terrifying. Looking at his nephew who had already matured too much, Su Jingting couldn't help but be moved in his heart, and he glared at Su Jiao, who spoke. This child is already an untouchable existence in my Su clan. Like father, like son, the Su clan has hope. Following Su Jiao's words, Su Jingting broke the silence and said with a smile, "It's also very good here. Elder Gyue and Palace Master Duanmu treat us very well. You can rest assured." Subsequently, Su Jingting looked at Su Jiao, and his eyes moved slightly. "Su Jiao, what are you still in a daze for? Quickly go invite old master. Is back. Hurry up and invite him." Su Jingting gave Su Jiao a look, meaning to tell her not to speak anymore. Sacred Mountain's matters weren't something a woman like her could participate in. If new problems arose, and Su Yi and Sacred Mountain had a grudge, it was absolutely not good. You guys chat. You guys chat. Su Jiao wasn't a stupid person, and she immediately wiped away her tears and said with a smile. Su Jingting pulled Su Yi to sit at the side and introduced everything here to Su Yi. At this time, everyone had already left. Right, Palace Master Duanmu asked us to deliver medicine to the Earth Vein, so it was for you? Su Jingting said with a smile. Sizing up Su Yi, Su Jingting's heart was filled with warmth and excitement, and he was in high spirits as he talked about everything that happened in Juqian Palace with delight. Chapter 17:12. He talked about how they came here step by step. At first, he thought he was a wolf in a tiger's den. Later on, he talked about how this place was his home. As for Mansheng, he hadn't returned for a long time. He wanted to know how Mansheng was doing now. In Su Yi's impression, his uncle had always been a man of few words. This time, he was so enthusiastic as if he couldn't say anything. He was probably happy from the bottom of his heart. Su Yi listened with a smile. He was very patient. Feeling Su Yi's aura, Su Jingting was in disbelief. His eyes were filled with surprise. You've reached the Origin Emperor realm? Su Yi nodded and smiled. Compared to Su Yin Tian, Su Jingting's cultivation and foundation were much worse. It was said that it was because he was weak and sickly when he was young. He wasn't good at martial arts. His father, whom he had never seen before, was extremely impressive. Yes, I just broke through not long ago. Hearing this, Su Jingting looked at Su Yi for a long time without saying anything. His eyes suddenly turned red, and he said with a trembling voice, "Good boy, I know that you've suffered a lot these years. The Su family has wronged you. Brother Yuan and Sister Fu will definitely be very happy that you have such achievements." After Su Jingting finished, his shoulders that weren't thin and weak trembled slightly. Now, it seemed that the wise and mighty uncle who controlled the Su family situation had also grown old and had become much more sentimental. This was the first time that Su Jingting talked about his parents. His father was Su Jingyuan, and his mother's name was Fu. There was no specific impression in the family tree. At that moment, Su Yi's heart softened. He patted Su Jingting's shoulder and comforted him softly. "Where's my grandson?" "Yeah." In the depths of the courtyard, a burst of heroic spirit surged out in an instant. But before it could get close to him, before it got close, Su Yi could feel a fresh and majestic Origin Emperor aura rushing towards him. It was like a wave crashing onto Su Yi's body. Su Yi looked up and saw a familiar figure walking out of the room with big strides. He had the demeanor of a master. His white hair was combed straight behind his back. His eyes were bright and full of expression. His skin was extremely tight, and suffused with a faint luster. Compared to Su Jingting, who was standing at the side, he was slightly younger. Su Yi's eyes couldn't help but light up. If it wasn't for his white hair and long beard, you wouldn't be able to tell who was older between Su Yuntian and Su Jingting. It was none other than the person closest to him, his grandfather who loved him the most in this world, Su Yuntian. "Grandpa!" Su Yi shouted. Putting down the things in his hands, Su Yi quickly rushed to Su Yuntian's side and wrapped his arms tightly around Su Yuntian. Looking deeply at Su Yi, Su Yuntian's eyes could not help but become moist, and there was a slight fluctuation in his gaze. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Su Yuntian's thick palms were constantly trembling as he patted Su Yi's shoulders. He was extremely excited. The grandfather and grandson hugged each other tightly. Su Yi, who had always been calm, couldn't help but reveal a rather excited expression on his face. Seeing this, Su Jingting, who was standing to the side, was incomparably moved. He gently retreated to the side and smiled. Not bad. It's even sturdier, which means it's even darker." "Huh." Su Yuntian looked up and down, his eyes filled with praise. Hearing this, Su Yi couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. These days, he had been running back and forth, and had indeed suffered a lot. On his firm face, there was a bit of mature bleakness, and Su Yi's heroic spirit increased. "Grandpa, forgive me for directly going to the front peak as soon as I woke up. I didn't have time to find you and Uncle." Su Yi's face revealed a look of shame. After waking up from the earth vein, Su Yi received a pill from the Su family's little helper. According to the little helper, it was the fairy sister who asked him to send it over, and the fairy sister had already gone to the front peak. Su Yi didn't have time to find the Su family first. He knew that the Heaven Riding Soul competition would definitely continue, so he directly rushed to the venue. With nothing to do, Su Yi's heart was filled with guilt, because it had been too long since he had a good talk with his grandfather. "No matter. My grandson's ambition is the world. Let's not talk about this. Let's go. Let's go to my room." These days, I felt that my grandson was coming back, just as expected. Following this, Su Yuntian laughed heartily, and his broad palm pressed down on Su Yi's shoulder. Su Yi immediately felt Su Yuntian's strong aura, and his eyes flashed with a trace of strange light. He followed Su Yuntian back to his room. The furnishings in the room were no different from the Heaven Riding Soul Palace. They were all extremely simple, but they revealed a boundless and ancient aura. Together with his own mysterious space, this was definitely the best place to cultivate martial arts. Once back in the room, Su Yuntian happily said, "That Duanmu Palace Master is very courteous to our Su family. This old man can see that although she is cold, she is extremely concerned about our Su family. Su Yi, it is our Su family's fortune to have such a friend. And when the time comes, I'll find a chance to thank her." Su Yi softly laughed. In his mind, the shocking attack power, sometimes enchanting, sometimes weak, but most of the time cold and strong appearance appeared. Hearing these words, Su Yuntian laughed out loud. His long robe fluttered as he boldly sat down. "I think this lady is pretty good. Our Su family has received so many favors from her. Don't just talk about it. You should really thank her." "Lady?" He thought he heard wrong, and laughed in his heart. Grandpa probably did not know that Duanmu Palace Master was much older than Su Yi, but he could only suppress his laughter and silently nod. With regard to his grandpa's nagging, Su Yi never got tired of it. Su Yuntian drank a mouthful of tea and continued. "After that, did you see Lu Yada? She wanted to kill me. How could I see her?" Su Yi's resolute face revealed a trace of helplessness as he curled his lips. Grandpa will still say the same thing. You have already grown up. You can make your own decisions. However, this Duanmu Palace Master is not bad. The Su family owes him a debt of gratitude. If you're interested, Grandpa will go to Duanmu Palace Master tomorrow and help you mention this matter." He suddenly jumped in fright. The image of the red-clothed Lu Ruashi that appeared in his mind suddenly turned into Duanmu Palace Master's face, causing his heart to turn cold. "Forget it, Grandpa. I have my own plans. I still have a lot of things to do. What's wrong with that? My grandson is so outstanding. Is there anything in this world that he is not worthy of? Su Tian said in a clear voice. He hurriedly waved his hands and said, Palace Master Duanmu Palace Master is so busy. How can he be so carefree like me? In truth, he was thinking that this lady was indeed beautiful and could be said to be a heaven above earth. However, her temper was weird, and he did not know if it was because she had been single for too long. Who knows? Maybe one day she would eat him alive in the blink of an eye. Right now, the Tianfeng ranking tournament was what he wanted to do the most. Through the ranking tournament, he would be able to quickly raise his strength and walk towards a wider sky. Strength was a man's weapon. Chapter 17:13. It's still strength, He muttered. He couldn't help but clench his fists as he deeply felt that his strength was insufficient. The sacred mountain had already dealt with Wang Xuanda, and there was still the revenge of Tian Yao School's destruction. Thinking of this, Su Yi's eyes were filled with murderous intent. By the way, grandfather, I just sense that you have broken through to the Origin Emperor realm. Su Tian had just finished drinking a mouthful of tea. His eyes were bright, and his aura was steady. There was a faint, overbearing aura that filled the air. He was definitely an Emperor realm expert. Look at grandfather's memory. I was too happy. Not bad. Palace Master Duanmu came to guide me a few days ago. In addition to the spiritual liquid that you gave me, I just broke through. Tell me, this debt of gratitude is unimaginable. Just as he finished speaking, Su Tian turned around and carefully sensed Su Yi's aura. Su Tian was pleasantly surprised. You're already at the 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm. The aura that Su Yi was emitting was constantly guiding the energy of heaven and earth. The faintly discernible energy around his body directly covered Su Tian. That's right, grandfather. I also just broke through a few days ago. Su Tian's face was brimming with happiness and pride. His eyes were filled with gratification. He had just broken through to the Origin Emperor realm after spending his entire life. He had only started practicing martial arts for a few years, and he actually reached the Origin Emperor realm. How could Su Tian not be happy? Good. I have already said that my grandson will definitely become a tyrant of this era. Grandfather is proud of you. The Su family is also proud of you. The Origin Emperor realm was something that Su Tian would never be able to achieve in his lifetime. However, with the help of Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman, Grandfather Su's lifelong dream was fulfilled. Seeing that his grandfather and the Su family were living so well here, Su Yi couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. If the Demon Emperor comes again, this old man will definitely make him pay with his blood. Have a taste of this old man's purple origin art. He snickered in his heart. The Green Emperor had already become his subordinate. If he had the time, he would let them resolve this knot in their hearts. Grandfather, after you moved to the Imperial Palace, how are the Su, Mo, and Song families? Is there any news of them? Is Lu City Lord Lu? Su Yuntian's eyes and Imperial Palace. Mo, and Song are already used to life in Barbarian City. Lord Lu, Mo, and Song are already used to livings. Louis, Mo, and Song Imperials. Su Yi had just heard that the Holy Mountain had come to harass the Su family, so he asked about the situation. S's. It's not just for the Su family. After you left, the Sacred Mountain has been moving around the Barbarian City more frequently. Later on, a large number of disciples from the Sacred Mountain poured into the Barbarian City and stationed themselves at the Lu family. They searched the Barbarian City every day in the name of catching you. No one knows what the Sacred Mountain is doing. Barbarian City is small and lacking in resources. It's also very close to Barbarian Demon Forest. Sacred Mountain came for me with great fanfare? That's not very likely. He thought carefully. Not good. Su Tian was shocked. He stood up and growled. Could it be for Barbarian City's secret treasure? Those bandits at the Holy Mountain must have gotten wind of something. Su Yi stared at Su Tian and said, Didn't you say Barbarian City doesn't have any secret treasures? Sacred Mountain's methods are heaven-defying. Maybe they have some information. Even if they don't, Barbarian City must have been greatly damaged by them. No, I have to go back. Su Yi's heart sank. Barbarian City had an extremely important position in his grandfather's heart. He, who was born for Barbarian City, would never allow others to taint it. In addition, he was now an Origin Emperor expert. His desire to protect Barbarian City was even stronger. Su Yi was afraid that his grandfather would return to Barbarian City in a fit of anger. That would be bad. Sacred Mountain had taken root in Barbarian City. After my Tion Phone ranking tournament, I'll go and see what you guys are doing. Grandfather, how about this? I'll go to Barbarian City for you. You can stay in Juqian Palace first. The Su family still needs you. Su Yuntian's eyes sunk. After thinking for a while, he sighed, all right. If Barbarian City is in trouble, you must bring grandfather back. Su Yi nodded. Barbarian City didn't have any treasures. The first time the Undying Sect attacked, his grandfather's sudden increase in strength was very strange. He definitely had to return to Barbarian City. Don't worry, grandfather. Su Yi's sword-like eyebrows sunk. His killing intent was strong. Looking at the increasingly hale and hardy Su Yuntian, Su Yi's heart stirred. He searched in the space bag. Su Yi took out most of the weapons he collected from the 100 Herb Academy, as well as various pill recipes, spirit herbs, and plants. He gave most of them to Su Yuntian. This time, Su Yi felt that the Su family, from the servants to the servants, were all full of energy. It was obvious that Su Yi's things were all put to good use. The huge amount of resources made Su Yuntian dumbfounded once again. He was incomparably amazed by Su Yi. When he received it with trembling hands, spiritual energy filled the room. The entire Su family's courtyard seemed to be covered in a layer of radiance. Su Yuntian was immediately enveloped by the radiance. Grandfather, give these to the Su family. Recuperate in Juqian Palace. In the future, the Su family will be stronger than any family in Barbarian City. After that, Su Yi chatted with his grandfather for a while more before leaving the Su family's courtyard. Looking at the Juqian Palace in the distance, Su Yi circulated the fire attribute energy under his feet and quickly arrived in front of the Juqian Palace. Grandfather was right. Duan Mu Xiaoman's kindness to the Su family was too great. Even if I had offended her before, I still have to enter the palace. Looking at the green jade stone door that was taller than a person, it was enveloped in a faint radiance. Su Yi immediately circulated his energy and prepared to push the door open. Bang! A heavy force directly pushed Su Yi's right hand away, startling Su Yi. What a powerful stone door. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. Su Yi once again shot out a scarlet flame thunderbolt from his palm and instantly retreated. Bang, bang. There were 2 consecutive explosions in the air, setting off a boundless wave of wind. The long line of fire that was like a violent wind instantly brought about countless sparks. In the midst of the scorching radiance, Su Yi went closer to take a look. There was actually no reaction from the stone door. He gently placed his hand on it. Suddenly, a cold air rushed up, and he retracted his hand. Damn it, what kind of stone is this? It's actually so hard. Su Yi muttered softly. Not to mention the stone door, there wasn't even a trace of it. Currently, Su Yi, who was in the Origin Emperor realm, was also in existence that could flatten a small mountain. However, he was stumped by a stone door. Chapter 17:14. Rumble. Just when he was in a dilemma, the huge stone door opened with a loud creak sound. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. He no longer hesitated and stepped in. The moment he stepped in, he felt a piercing coldness. After reaching the Origin Emperor realm, Su Yi's physical strength had reached a new level. However, he could still feel a trace of coldness, which surprised him. Looking around, the entire Command Heaven Shrine was squarish and uniform in color. It was all made of the same material as a stone door. No wonder it was so cold here. Su Yi thought to himself. This was a complete stone hall that was completed in one go. Everywhere was cold. Su Yi, who was looking around, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. A wave of coldness attacked him again. He shivered and felt even colder in his heart. The stones here are so strange. Why is it so cold? Apart from some simple carvings, there was nothing else worth looking at in the entire stone hall. At a glance, there were dots of lights shining in the distance. There was no one in the entire hall. It was like a tomb for the living dead. He suddenly remembered some of the stories he read on Earth. This place added a sense of obscurity and solitude for no reason. All the stones here were left behind by the ancestors. After tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years of precipitation, it is definitely not something you can move. On a high chair in the distance, Duanmu Xiaoman was already sitting on the seat of honor. In the dim shrine, Duanmu Xiaoman's snow-white body was like a jade sculpture, shining brightly. Her seductive curves and long legs crossed each other. He restrained his expression for a moment. "You are so generous. You even gave the command heaven order to Jun Haotian?" He smiled embarrassedly. At that time, he was hot-headed and gave it to Jun Haotian. Now that he thought about it, there was nothing wrong with it. I think it suits him. His heart is with the command heaven. It can be considered as a contribution to the command heaven shrine. Duanmu Xiaoman snorted coldly. Her long skirt fluttered, and a fragrant wind filled the entire shrine. That's a chance to obtain the Grand Elder's favor, a chance of great luck. If he becomes a disciple of one of the Grand Elders, let's see what you'll do in the future. The Grand Elder of the Heavenly Drive Palace was far from comparable to the Divine Sword Sect and Blue Cloud Hall, these kind of second-rate sections. The Grand Elders were all old monsters that had not appeared in the world, and their hands and eyes reached the heavens. In a second-rate sect, the elders and above were all Origin Emperors. The Origin Ancestor was already the strongest weapon or the last trump card of the sect. As for first-rate factions, there were plenty of Yuan Ancestor realm experts at the Elder level and above. At the very least, the sect master had to be at the Yuan domain realm to be able to hold the fort. For Han Wulong to be able to take charge of a top sect like the Immeasurable Sect at such a young age, his talent was one aspect, and his methods were certainly extremely brilliant. Among them, there was no need to even mention the level of the Prime Elder. To be honest, the level of the Prime Elder determined the level of the sect. Listening to the Duanmu Xiaoman's words, it seemed that the Duanmu Xiaoman was concerned about him. Su Yi's bright eyes glowed in the darkness. Hee, why would I need that Grand Elder? Don't I have you? With your guidance, I will definitely be stronger than him in the future. Did I say that I would guide you? The Duanmu Xiaoman said faintly as a trace of coldness flashed in her eyes. Su Yi immediately jumped up and said loudly, "Hey, you're the sect master of a sect. We made an agreement in front of so many people on the Broken Sword Sea. As long as I can reach 20,000 meters, you will guide me." I did say that, but let me ask you, are you going to represent the Heavenly Palace in the Tianfeng ranking tournament? The Duanmu Xiaoman's expression was ice cold. In an instant, the hall fell into a deadlock. Under the dim light, Su Yi's brows were tightly knitted. As the sect master of the Bawang sect, how could he represent the Heavenly Palace in the Tianfeng ranking tournament? Moreover, he had already received the Tianfeng token, so he could not casually change it. In this Tianfeng ranking tournament, Su Yi wanted to stand proudly in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean, to let everyone know the name of the Bawang sect. He could not use the name of the Heavenly Palace in the Tianfeng ranking tournament. Of course not. The Duanmu Xiaoman seemed to have already guessed Su Yi's answer and blurted out, "Then how do you want me to guide you? Make you an enemy of my Heavenly Palace? Then tell me what to do. Acknowledge me as your master." The Duanmu Xiaoman said softly. Su Yi could not help but smile bitterly. Just a moment ago, his grandfather wanted him to come and propose marriage. Who would have thought that this fairy sister would want him to be her disciple? Shaking his head, Su Yi said coldly, "That is also impossible." Back then, when Gyue invited him to join the Heavenly Palace, Su Yi did not agree. After acknowledging him as his master, he thought that he had become a member of the Heavenly Palace. He was already the sect master of the Bawang sect, so he definitely could not change his allegiance to another sect. Taking 10,000 steps back in Su Yi's heart, the one who was worthy of the title of master was Elder Su, and the other was the old senior in the valley. Under the broken sword sea, he had already treated the Duanmu Xiaoman like that. How could Su Yi call her master in the future? Su Yi cannot do it. Is this fellow forcing me? Su Yi thought to himself. In the distance, the Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful lips curled up slightly. Her eyes were hazy as she said, "Since you're not going to fight for my heavenly palace, and you are not acknowledging me as your master, how do you want me to teach you? What do you want me to teach you?" Su Yi immediately said, "I just want to learn a few things about the soul controller here. If you don't teach me, there is nothing I can do." With that, Su Yi turned around and left. With his back turned, a trace of hesitation flashed across his incomparably resolute face. A gust of wind danced behind him, and under the dark candlelight, a blood-red arc drew across the sky. Boom! In an instant, the inside of the temple was filled with blood-red wind, and a peerless gust of wind descended. At Su Yi's feet, a large and bladeless blood-patterned long sword lay quietly. The sparks from the collision were quickly extinguished. Blood demon killing god sword? She actually helped me get it back. Duanmu Xiaoman was behind him, her expression calm. After a slight pause, she said, "Is this how you learned under the broken sword sea?" "Aye." With his back facing Duanmu Xiaoman, Su Yi immediately recalled the charming scene under the broken sword sea. As expected, Duanmu Xiaoman still couldn't forget it, and neither could he. He originally thought that if Duanmu Xiaoman didn't mention it, it would be as if nothing had happened. Now, she still brought it up. Taking a deep breath, Su Yi turned around and said, "Palace Master Duanmu, the blood dragon poison has entered your body. You know better than anyone what happened that day." Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman, a trace of expectation flashed across his clear, diamond-like eyes. "So, if I have offended you in any way, I apologize. And everything you have done to the Su clan, Su Yi will do his best to make up for it in the future." Duanmu Xiaoman's originally bright eyes dimmed instantly. The corner of her mouth curled up as she said, "What are you going to use to make up for it? If I can't pay it back in 10 years, I will pay it back in 20 years. If I can't pay it back in 20 years, I will pay it back in 30 years. One day, I will be able to pay it back in full." Su Yi was resolute. Asking him to become a disciple of the imperial palace was absolutely impossible. "What if I let you pay it back for a lifetime?" Duanmu Xiaoman's soft and pleasant voice faintly echoed. "Come, wonderful book house." Chapter 17:15. Su Yi frowned, his heart suddenly trembling. Could it be that she really likes me? "Kid, this palace master is not as weird as that girl Yinjing. This woman is not simple. Her thoughts are like the sea. Think about it carefully." The spirit beast sat in the entryway. After the medicinal aura of the Dongxian heavenly fire pill entered Su Yi's body, it lingered in the entryway. There was a little red light in the milky white, like a flame dancing around the entryway. The spirit beast also seemed to be nourished and was full of energy. The corner of his mouth twitched. Su Yi could not make up his mind. The Duanmu Xiaoman had always been unpredictable. If he made her unhappy or misunderstood, he would not be able to bear the consequences. Anyway, he would not be her disciple. At worst, he would not learn the art of soul control from her. If he had the chance in the future, it would be the same. After making up his mind, Su Yi took a breath and looked at the Duanmu Xiaoman with a calm gaze. In the darkness, a gentle and soft voice quietly slipped into Su Yi's heart. "You really don't want to be my disciple? Why?" Between the sword-like eyebrows, he could see an extremely seductive figure in the haze. The smooth and boneless sound waves rippled. Su Yi's heart suddenly trembled. In the dense and obscure atmosphere, Su Yi suddenly panted slightly. The feeling of a fire under his abdomen was like 100 claws scratching at his heart. A feeling of wanting to fiercely pounce on her lingered in Su Yi's heart. The Duanmu Xiaoman in front of him was like a cat. She was like a fairy, but did not lose her allure. Her watery eyes were filled with a moving aura. The blood dragon poison is still not cured. At that moment, Su-yi felt a chill run down his back. He shouted anxiously, and the fire in his blood boiled like lava, burning Su-yi's mind. Looking into his body, he realized that the temperature was neither too high nor too low. The heavenly origin demon soul was like a dancing flame, flickering and extinguishing. However, there was an extremely unbearable feeling. From the looks of it, Duanmu Xiaoman had become even more stunning. Under her beautiful face, her ample breasts were undulating, and her slightly parted red lips were filled with charm. This isn't caused by the blood dragon poison. She's using her soul to suppress you. She wants to test you. A faint voice came from the entrance. If you don't want to become my disciple, there are only the two of us here. Tell me, do you really not want to go to the bottom of the sea of broken swords? The Duanmu Xiaoman's delicate body turned slightly, and the red clouds began to spread to her snow-white neck. Thinking of the scene under the sea, she couldn't help but tremble slightly. The hidden cold aura floated in the air, and his words carried a bit of expectation. Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes were lively, and her eyelashes seemed to have flames dancing. What are you testing me for? Under this kind of gaze, Su-yi felt even more unbearable and hurriedly asked the iron soulfish, "You don't want to become my disciple, and you don't want to be rude to her. How can such a peerless beauty be willing to accept this? I don't know if you're tempted, but she's tempted." The corner of the soul puppet's mouth lifted, and it looked at Su-yi being tortured by the Duanmu Xiaoman with interest. At this time, Su-yi's throat was already dry. He licked his dry lips, and thoughts ran through his mind. The iron soulfish's words woke him up. Demon, using this kind of method to test if I really don't want to become her disciple. Huff huff. Su-yi licked his dry lips as he tried his best to hide the anxiety in his heart. Then, he smiled faintly without leaving a trace. Dang, dang, dang. Since you want to play, I'll play with you. Su-yi murmured in his heart. Su-yi's eyes flashed, and he pretended to scratch his head lazily. Then, he lowered his hands, and the art of driving the heavens and the Origin Supreme technique quickly revolved like a windmill. Steady for me. Facing a high and mighty woman like the Duanmu Xiaoman, only calmness was the best counterattack. Since you want to test me, then I'll test you too. What else in this world could give a greater sense of accomplishment than conquering the palace master of the Heaven's Command Palace? As he continued to walk forward, the fiery feeling around Su-yi's body eased a little, and a strange light appeared in Su-yi's dark eyes. The lights flickered, and in the spacious hall, Duanmu Xiaoman's calm face began to show signs of change. When Su-yi walked in front of her, the Duanmu Xiaoman changed her posture, and her crossed snow-white legs began to soften, and she stood up involuntarily. A fragrant wind blew over, lingering in the ambiguous atmosphere. Su-yi's figure flashed, and he disappeared like a ball of fire. In the next moment, Su-yi had already clamped down on the Duanmu Xiaoman's hands, and the Duanmu Xiaoman sat back on the stone chair. After a moment of silence, the two looked at each other, and a fiery aura gently hit their faces. Both of them could feel each other's breathing. Damn, that's too exciting. Brat, have you released your nature? The iron soulfish was shouting in the entrance, and he narrowed his eyes, but it was obvious that he was starting to get excited. With a slight struggle, the Duanmu Xiaoman was once again pressed down by Su-yi's body, and her voluptuous softness was slightly touched. She looked up at Su-yi and said indifferently, "What do you want to do? What do you think?" Su-yi's dark eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness. Having made up his mind, Su-yi's throat moved slightly, and his eyebrows raised. Looking at the Duanmu Xiaoman's pretty face, Su-yi's mind began to wander. In reality, Su-yi was already panting heavily, and he cursed inwardly. Damn it, I actually don't want to lay my hands on such a beauty. However, if I don't teach her a lesson today, I won't be able to take it if she keeps using this trick on me. I definitely can't let her have me. Above Jian Diane's red lips was a nose as high as a mountain, and her clear eyes were like stars, which made Su-yi feel a little dazed. He thought to himself, this kind of woman is really rare. Fortunately, She doesn't go out of the palace often, or she'll attract bees and butterflies everywhere when she goes out of the palace. Unexpectedly, the distance between the two was getting closer and closer, and he could feel that the Duanmu Xiaoman also felt something. She stubbornly bit her lips and tilted her head to the side. "Let go. I won't let go." Su Yi held her wrist even tighter, as if the Duanmu Xiaoman was his woman. "You were able to suppress yourself under the broken sword sea. So what's going on now? Have you revealed your true nature?" The Duanmu Xiaoman sneered, and her deep eyes stared at Su Yi, seemingly filled with endless anger, but her attitude was faintly relaxed. Su Yi's nose twitched, and he said indifferently, "If the blood dragon poison wants me to defile you, I definitely can't do it. But if you have feelings for me, then it's a different story. And I'm sure that you have feelings for me." Su Yi's words immediately stunned the Duanmu Xiaoman. Her body shrank slightly, and then she smiled faintly. Chapter 17:16. What a joke. You're just a tiny speck of dust in front of me. Why would I have feelings for you? Besides, do you dare to defile me? Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful face was slightly red. Her cold and beautiful eyes emitted a bit of charm. Su Yi's mouth curved into a sly smile. He could feel that Duanmu Xiaoman's soul pressure had completely disappeared. If Duanmu Xiaoman said that she was indifferent, he would definitely not believe it. In any case, I won't acknowledge you as my master, but I really want to know if you're really that hard-hearted. Su Yi, who had made up his mind, looked at the bright red and delicate cherry lips slightly opened, revealing her fragrant teeth. Her fiery gaze trembled slightly, and a ball of fire directly appeared in Su Yi's mind. He jumped out from it, bending down gently. Su Yi's head had just tilted to the side, and he had not yet touched her smooth lips. A muffled sound resounded in the hall. The dust in the air danced, and the candlelight on the wall flickered. Bang! Su Yi flew out like a cannonball, and then heavily smashed into the ground. The ground did not move, and the entire hall was still dull and cold. Su Yi, who had fallen to the ground, immediately felt as if his bones had been shattered. There was no part of his body that did not hurt. Duanmu Xiaoman had used a heavy hand in that move just now. Taking a deep breath, he stood up. His footsteps trembled slightly, and Duanmu Xiaoman's long skirt in front of him trembled, and her clothes fluttered. In an instant, the blush on her face had returned to a calm and composed expression. The pair of eyes on her beautiful face were like cold ice diamonds, indifferently looking at Su Yi in the distance. "Duanmu Xiaoman, why did you use so much strength?" Su Yi was in great pain. He softly cried out and rubbed the place where he had just landed. A violent, tearing feeling instantly transmitted. His old injuries had not yet healed, and now his heart was hurt. Su Yi's eyes were like fire as he glared at Duanmu Xiaoman. You don't deserve to test me." Her jade-like teeth parted, clearly showing no sympathy for Su Yi. Under the cover of frost, Duanmu Xiaoman took light steps and quickly walked toward Su Yi. Su Yi's eyes darkened. He could instantly feel Duanmu Xiaoman's soul energy pressing down on him. It was like a tidal wave, causing his Tianyuan demon soul to tremble violently. It was as if he had fallen into a dream. This pressure is so terrifying. He felt a chill in his heart. The Duanmu Xiaoman in front of him had suddenly become incomparably huge, and Su Yi himself had become incomparably small. A sense of inferiority arose spontaneously and instantly filled Su Yi's mind. When his pupils suddenly contracted, the Duanmu Xiaoman had already walked in front of him. His lofty gaze lowered, as if he was looking at an inferior person. "This woman is serious. You should just admit defeat. Half step into Yuan Tian's stage. Stop struggling." The spirit beast looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, who had a natural aura of majesty, as if she was a goddess. It was completely different from the enchanting and shy appearance just now. The Duanmu Xiaoman who had put away her shyness was definitely one of the top masters in this continent. Dong dong. Su Yi's mind was shaken. He struggled to stand up. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were cold like ice that had not melted for thousands of years. I don't want you for the rest of your life. I know what you mean. Take me as your master. A trace of sadness flashed across Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful face. Endless pain came from his blood vessels and pores. The injury just now was still faintly painful. Although there was a trace of sadness in Su Yi's eyes, it was like a sharp knife that was weeping blood that stabbed into Su Yi's heart. Su Yi had not seen such a fearful look in her eyes for a long time. What does she know? Su Yi was a little confused. The corner of his eyes twitched. Su Yi's eyes were filled with confusion. He wrinkled his nose and said, I will never take you as my master. I just said that I have a master. No matter what master you have, you must take me as your master. Su Yi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was starting to get angry. He saw that her cold face was covered with frost. Impossible. A surge of anger and resentment suddenly exploded. Su Yi's long hair fluttered in the wind, revealing a pair of pitch-black eyes that were filled with extreme anger. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yi turned around and left. He would definitely not take Duanmu Xiaoman as his master today, nor would he enter Yuqin Palace. A trace of cold arrogance appeared on Su Yi's determined face. This was the last of his stubbornness. Qi, a huge suction force like a whirlpool, directly pulled Su Yi's body back. His body involuntarily turned around. Su Yi's heart was filled with shock, and when he lifted his eyes to look at Duanmu Xiaoman again, her delicate and beautiful face was filled with a murderous aura. Boundless soul energy surged out from Duanmu Xiaoman's body, and Duanmu Xiaoman's figure was magnified endlessly in Su Yi's mind. The milky white divine light was like a celestial cloud that covered heaven and earth. Her face that was as soft as snow looked down from above. Her elegant eyes were like a 10,000-year-old deity opening her eyes. In an instant, Su Yi's mind collapsed into nothingness. Creak! With a bad sound, Su Yi's knees fell heavily on the stone floor. The intense pain did not pull Su Yi away from the feeling of insignificance. Before you become strong, you have no right or qualification to talk about any conditions in front of me. This is strength. Large beads of sweat rolled down Su Yi's forehead like flowing water. These words were like heavenly music that shook Su Yi's heart. Su Yi, who had completely lost control, instantly had bloodshot eyes. The great void, deep sea in his body, was already dead silent. Only the mysterious ball of light was still emitting an extremely weak light. Clenching his teeth, a wave of anger gushed out from his heart. His eyes flashed with coldness as Su Yi roared angrily. I'm not bowing. Don't you understand? Immediately after, a vast wave of soul energy surged out from Su Yi's body like a spring. Su Yi's muscles and bones continuously emitted crackling sounds. Waves of heart-piercing pain once again filled every blood vessel. If one could see, Su Yi's meridians once again burst with extremely weak cracks. Boom! Duanmu Xiaoman's expression changed rapidly. With a shout, she put her palms together and formed a hand seal. Her index and middle fingers touched, and a dazzling beam of soul energy instantly shot towards Su Yi's forehead. Bang! Immediately, Su Yi completely lost his energy. The mysterious ball of light was clearly entangled by countless thin strands of light, and instantly lost its vitality. At this moment, Su Yi stood rooted to the ground as if he had no bones. His four limbs were stiff, and only his eyes were still burning with boundless anger. Without the slightest ability to resist, Su Yi's head was invisibly controlled by a wave of energy and heavily knocked onto the stone floor. A dull boom resounded through the hall. Dust flew everywhere, and sound waves rippled out. Su Yi, who was unable to press down, had blue veins popping out. His swollen red skin looked as if it had been scorched by the sun as he roared again and again. Let me go. I don't want to be your disciple. Chapter 17:17. Her bright red lips parted, and a cold sneer came out faintly. That's not up to you. His soul pressure increased once again, and an unbreakable pressure pressed down on Su Yi's neck once more. Together with the pressure, another two heavy collisions resounded through the sky, including the Caodao just now. A total of 3 muffled collisions resounded through the sky, and the air instantly rippled with countless ripples. At this time, Su Yi's eyes were extremely red, and a strong murderous intent and murderous aura once again filled the air. However, it didn't help at all. He was completely at the mercy of Duanmu Xiaoman. In front of real strength, Su Yi once again felt his own helplessness and insignificance. The sense of helplessness from the bottom of his heart made Su Yi feel very depressed. The mysterious light ball was sealed, and the last bit of his power was also taken away. In front of a half-step Yuan Tian realm cultivator, was he really so useless? Su Yi's blood was boiling and surging violently. His hair and beard were all standing on end, and his hands were on the ground, trying to use all of his strength to open the mysterious light ball again. Get up for me. Duanmu Xiaoman's seductive waist twisted in the air, and a boundless pressure immediately surged out like waves. You want to use that power that doesn't belong to you again? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes slightly fluctuated, and a trace of ridicule appeared on the corner of her mouth. Do you only know how to rely on power that doesn't belong to you at critical moments? How sad. Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful eyebrows slightly knitted. She seemed to have thought of something. Looking at Su Yi, who was still stubbornly resisting on the ground, her eyes lit up. It's none of your business. Su Yi shouted at the top of his lungs. Su Yi, who had never been humiliated like this before, pressed down on the stone slab and struggled with all his strength. The continuous sound waves were very shocking. You're brave, but this is a world where strength is the most important thing. It's not something that you can reach the top with just passion. Each and every word was like a gem, heavily smashing into Su Yi's heart. Su Yi, who had a serious expression on his face, suddenly had a flash of lightning in his heart. Shock surged up once more, and he couldn't help but let out a bitter sigh. Indeed, I'm too weak. You're so weak that you don't even have the ability to stand up in front of Yuan Tian realm experts. Without absolute strength, one could only be at the mercy of others. All this time, Su Yi had been constantly pushing himself to improve his cultivation, with the goal of flattening the sacred mountain. And now, in front of the Yuqian Palace, which had been around for 10,000 years, he was like a pile of mud. Then, in front of the Lord, what was he? His bent hands gradually froze. In an instant, Su Yi seemed to have an epiphany. His eyes moved slightly, and blood dripped from his lips as he clenched his teeth. If you always fight with your life on the line, then you don't deserve me to teach you. You're just a complete coward, a brainless death warrior. The huge Yuqian Palace was extremely spacious. Duanmu Xiaoman stood beside Su Yi, and there seemed to be light flowing in the corner of her eyes. Without strength, your so-called fighting with your life on the line is just empty talk. Boom! Su Yi, whose face was ashen, could feel that the heavy pressure on his body had disappeared. Su Yi sat cross-legged with a serious expression. The tyrannical blood chi, just now, had also disappeared. Su Yi couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Without absolute strength, fighting with your life on the line wouldn't be able to protect anyone. Dignity and principles, everything was just empty talk. As if he had an epiphany, Su Yi stood up. His face was still as calm as water, and he nodded at Duanmu Xiaoman. Palace Master Duanmu, I understand now. Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman again, Su Yi no longer had any intention to tease her. Instead, he only had respect and admiration for her. What reason did he have not to humbly ask for guidance from a half-step Yuan Tian expert? He cast a serious gaze at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was far away. The elegant and solemn Duanmu Xiaoman frowned slightly, and a trace of sadness appeared on her face. What did you call me? Duanmu Xiaoman said lightly. Gritting his teeth, Su Yi, who was frowning, said in a low voice, Master. Boom! A strong wind swept across, and a terrifying wave once again surged into Su Yi's mind. All the restrictions, just now, were instantly open like shackles. When he raised his eyebrows again, Duanmu Xiaoman's figure had already disappeared, and a calm voice came from afar. "Follow me." Su let out a long sigh of relief. Without Duanmu Xiaoman, he immediately felt a lot more relaxed. The soul pressure of a half-step Yuan Tian expert was really too terrifying. His Yuan Emperor realm was instantly crushed into nothingness. "Kid, did you suffer?" The iron soulfish covered its mouth and snorted. Sui rolled his eyes at the soul puppet beast and clenched his teeth in pain. The injuries he suffered just now were not light. He let out a long sigh and quickly increased his strength. Without strength, everything was useless. "One day, Duanmu Xiaoman, I will stand as tall as you, or even taller than you," Sui thought to himself. His resolute expression was incomparably serious. Immediately, Sui walked towards the direction where Duanmu Xiaoman disappeared. In the darkness, a fiery red butterfly spread its wings and flew away. Its bright light was like the sunset, illuminating the entire Juqian Palace. The direction where Duanmu Xiaoman disappeared was where the Earth Vein was located. Sui, who had already stayed in the Earth Vein before, quickly found Duanmu Xiaoman. When he entered the Earth Vein again, a surge of Ling Qi rushed towards Su Yi's body like lightning. Waves of warmth flowed through his body. In such a place, it was simply a blessing for cultivators. Sui curled his lips and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman's back. He muttered in his heart. At this moment, Sui did not dare to say any more nonsense. His attitude was slightly respectful. Sui constantly reminded himself not to be deceived by Duanmu Xiaoman's beauty. She was a half-step Yuan Tian expert stronger than anyone else. The key was that she was an extremely experienced sect master. Suyi's throat moved again. He was now more nervous than ever. The Juqian Palace's Earth Vein was at the bottom of the Juqian Palace. It was where the Ling Qi of the entire Juqian Palace was nourished. The Juqian Palace was beautiful, and the energy of heaven and earth was endless. It was because of the incomparably thick Earth Vein that circled around the mountain range. When the Juqian Palace Master built the palace here, he saw the deep Earth Vein and rich Ling Qi here. This has always been a place where only the Juqian Palace Master can cultivate, and I brought you here for the first time. Suyi's eyes were filled with shock. He was struggling in his heart. On one hand, he was careful of Duanmu Xiaoman. On the other hand, he unconsciously moved closer to Duanmu Xiaoman. Speaking of which, Duanmu Xiaoman was not only good to the Su family, she was also very good to him. She healed his injuries and risked her life to save him in the Broken Sword Sea. However, Sui always felt that he could not understand this mysterious woman. His eyes were filled with doubt. He licked his dry lips and said respectfully, "Thank you, Master. I accept you as my disciple. You don't need to participate in the Tianfeng ranking tournament for the Juqian Palace." Chapter 17-18. Hearing this, Sui looked up. Duanmu Xiaoman's back was still as cold as ever, but her tone was much gentler. His impression of Duanmu Xiaoman improved a lot. The gentle Duanmu Xiaoman was indeed very charming. "Sui, remember, if the Yuqian Palace is in trouble one day, I hope you won't come back. Hide as far away as possible." Duanmu Xiaoman stared at the flashing Earth Vein. Her expression was as cold as water, and a trace of coldness flashed through her eyes. The Yuqian Palace was a behemoth that spanned across the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Even a top sect like this would be in danger. If the Yuqian Palace is in trouble, I will definitely risk my life. I will return even if I am 10,000 miles away. Why would Duanmu Xiaoman say that? Suyi's starry eyes flashed with a trace of doubt as he thought to himself. Without thinking, Sui stepped forward with his right foot and clasped his fists. His face was slightly lowered as he spoke. "Master, that day will not come for the Yuqian Palace." Duanmu Xiaoman sighed. Her tender red lips trembled as she spoke with a thoughtful expression. "Nothing is certain. No matter how big a sect is, there will be a day when it will collapse. This world is much bigger than you think. Su Yi gently nodded. The corner of his mouth raised as he thought to himself, I don't know about the other sects, but that day will definitely come for the sacred mountain. Duanmu Xiaoman turned around. Her snow-white skin seemed even more ethereal under the contrast of the earth vein. Her gaze was serious as she spoke slowly. You just said you have a master, right? Su Yi scratched his head and cursed. He didn't know what this Duanmu Xiaoman was up to this time. Could it be that she wanted to find trouble with his master? Su Yi's body trembled as his nose twitched. His eyes wandered as he spoke. Yes, I have two masters, but they are not official masters. To be able to teach such a freak like you, tell me who they are. Su Yi clenched his fists as sweat appeared on his forehead. He slowly said, One is the Suruga elder from the central region's Shenjian Gate. He taught me a lot. He can be considered as my martial arts master. It's him. Duanmu Xiaoman raised her head as she elegantly looked at Su Yi. Being stared at by such a gaze, Su Yi felt extremely uncomfortable. He didn't dare to raise his head. Master, you know Elder Su? We have some connections, and he's a pretty good genius. He should be participating in the Tianfeng battle. That's right, in the last Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. Su Kuanga's name shook the entire continent. No wonder Elder Su knew that there was a place in the Imperial Palace where one could cultivate the will of weapons. He had some connections with Duanmu Xiaoman. In an instant, a skinny figure appeared in Su Yi's mind. The Suruga elder was known as the Sword Yama. Who would have thought that he had such a fierce battle record? Even the Nine Stars Valley's sect master couldn't make it to the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. How old was the Suruga elder? Su Yi was secretly shocked. The Suruga elder was around 70 years old. Could it be that he was already an expert on the 8 revered saints list or the 100 heroes palace when he was 12 or 13 years old? Immediately, his slightly wrinkled face instantly became valiant and tall, and his heart was filled with even more waves. What was even more terrifying was that the Suruga elder was only a good genius in the eyes of Duanmu Xiaoman. Compared to Elder Su, I am too far behind. Su Yi sighed. Duanmu Xiaoman looked at Su Yi, who was deep in thought. Her hair fluttered in the air as she said softly, What about the other master? Pulling his thoughts back, Su Yi coughed dryly and said, There's another one who is even more amazing. He's a senior from the Barbarian Demon Canyon next to my hometown. He was the one who taught me the art of driving the heavens. He should be the teacher who taught me the art of Imperial Soul. When he mentioned the senior, Duanmu Xiaoman's calm face changed greatly. Her voluptuous chest rose and fell as she quickly leaned forward. What does he look like? Is he well? Duanmu Xiaoman's abnormality aroused Su Yi's suspicions. Could it be that senior really has a great connection with Xinqian Palace? He shrunk back slightly and shook his head. He looked at Duanmu Xiaoman with regret. That senior seemed to be bound by a powerful restriction. At that time, I couldn't get in at all. Moreover, he was very weak. He could clearly see that Duanmu Xiaoman's body trembled slightly. Her beautiful face was filled with disappointment. Her eyes that seemed to be on fire were instantly extinguished. Her disappointed appearance made Su Yi's heart ache. Just what did she experience? Master, do you know that senior? Su Yi stepped forward with confusion in his eyes. A powerful restriction. Duanmu Xiaoman pondered, her brows slightly furrowed. Duanmu Xiaoman smiled bitterly. She looked at Su Yi and sniffed. She didn't say anything else. The two fell silent again. Su Yi felt very awkward. After a while, he broke the ice and said, Master, who is Duanmu Qingtian? Qingtian is my younger brother. Boom! As if he was hit, Su Yi took a deep breath and said, Then how is he now? Su Yi seemed to have heard of Duanmu Qingtian. He didn't know if this had anything to do with the senior at the bottom of the cliff. He asked tentatively. Duanmu Xiaoman's body stiffened. Specks of light flashed from Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes. He has disappeared for a long time. I can't even remember how many years it has been. Maybe I even forgot what he looked like. Duanmu Xiaoman smiled bitterly and stubbornly bit her lips. Su Yi saw this and felt very distressed. Su Yi knew that Duanmu Qingtian must be the knot in Duanmu Xiaoman's heart. Then your relationship must be very good. Su Yi sighed in a low voice. In a flash, Su Wanner's cute figure appeared in his eyes, as well as his good brother since childhood, Fatty Wang. Qingtian and I were brought back to the palace by our master the moment we were born. We have lived in the palace since we were young. Qingtian and I are the same age, but the quality of our souls is very high. He became famous in Yinzhou at a young age. That year, Qingtian, who was only 20, was already the acting palace lord. Next month, he would officially take the position of palace lord. He suddenly said that he wanted to travel to the various continents and hasn't come back since. As soon as he finished speaking, Duanmu Xiaoman's face flashed with a trace of sadness. Su Yi already knew what happened next. In order to find Duanmu Qingtian, Duanmu Xiaoman hurriedly took the position of palace lord. For several decades, she searched the 6 continents and 3 continents. In the end, she was disheartened and worked hard to cultivate. She never left the palace again. These were all what Su Yi heard from Elder Gyue and the other palace servants. Can you tell me the exact location of the master you mentioned? Duanmu Xiaoman said faintly. Her eyes flickered with anticipation. Su Yi's nose twitched. He had some doubts in his heart. Should I tell this to Duanmu Xiaoman? That senior once said that one had to be at least in the origin ancestor realm to be his disciple. There were countless primitive emperors under him. With such status and strength, the person who sealed him there must be extremely powerful. Chapter 17-19. If he brought the palace master of Yuqian Palace along, it would definitely cause a huge disaster in Man City, and the whole world would know about it. It wouldn't be a good thing for his senior, Man City, or Duanmu Xiaoman. Furthermore, the Sacred Mountain was currently stationed in Man City on a large scale. Although it would temporarily affect the Barbarian Demon Valley and Barbarian Demon Forest, it was true that they were plotting something. Phew, Su Yi let out a long breath. Thinking of this series of events, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine and a cold glint shot out from his eyes. If the Sacred Mountain is plotting against that senior, then this grudge will be even more serious. Su Yi swallowed a mouthful of saliva and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, a trace of anxiety flashing in his dark eyes. Master, that senior and I had agreed to find him after I reached the origin ancestor realm. Can I go with you after I reach the origin ancestor realm? At that time, if the senior was Duanmu Qingtian, he would be able to lend his master a hand. Su Yi thought to himself, given her personality, she would definitely dare to go against the whole world. When the world fell into chaos, Man City would be in danger. Grandfather Su Yintian would fight with his life on the line. After pondering for a long time, she looked at Su Yi and frowned slightly. Then she loosened her lips and spoke. Actually, Suruga once brought the flowing image stone to Yutian Palace to find me more than 40 years ago. This is what I said just now. It's related to Suruga. Su Yi naturally knew about the flowing image stone. It was something that the top experts of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean used to exchange information. It could record what one wanted to say in the form of a picture. It was a special product of Yutian Palace. Therefore, Yutian Palace kept many new and strange things in the world. Su Yi frowned and said in disbelief, Elder Su knows your brother? Hearing this, he was confused. Su Yi continued to ask, hasn't Duanmu Qingtian disappeared for a long time? Why would there be another flowing image stone? Duanmu Xiaoman nodded and said sadly, when Suruga delivered the flowing image stone, he had already suffered severe internal injuries. His meridians had shrunk, and he was on the verge of death. The flowing image stone was also severely damaged. After being repaired by the top refining elders of the Heavenly Command Palace, there were only a few words left inside. Hiss! No wonder. Su Yi's heart was filled with awe. In an instant, all the pores on his body opened up. According to the disciples of the Shinjin Gate, the sword Yamasuruga was a man of striking appearance and elegance. However, for some unknown reason, he became the size of a 7- or 8-year-old child. From then on, his temperament began to change greatly, and he was often moody. It could be imagined that after Elder Su recovered from his injuries in the Heavenly Command Palace, his appearance changed greatly, and his temperament began to become violent. Suddenly, a terrifying thought appeared in Su Yi's mind. How powerful was the sword Yama that year? Even Elder Su was severely injured. Wouldn't that mean that Duanmu Qingtian was also injured? Su Yi cast a cold gaze on that beautiful face. The more he looked, the more he felt that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. What did the flowing image stone say? Su Yi looked forward. Duanmu Xiaoman pondered for a moment. Her beautiful eyelashes fluttered, and a drop of crystal floated in the air, like a dancing snow crystal. Qingtian only said a few words and sighed. I know that at that time, his condition was very bad. He said that 20 years ago, he actually came back once, but he was chased by his enemies, so he hurriedly left something in Yinzhou. He also asked me to guard it well. When the time is right, he will come back. What did he leave behind? Su Yi's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. He felt that he had been drawn into a huge whirlpool. His eyes were like deep pools, and he immediately bit his lips. Do you still need to say it? I think it's the blood sword fruit. The iron soulfish said thoughtfully with drooping eyes. When he stole the blood sword fruit, the iron soulfish had told Su Yi that the blood sword fruit did not belong here. Blood sword fruit. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes trembled slightly, and she sighed faintly from her red lips. In an instant, Su Yi's scalp began to tingle. The blood sword fruit was actually something that Duanmu Qingtian left behind, and because of this matter, Suruga was still desperately guarding it. What exactly happened? Su Yi's cold aura quickly spread out, and a strong sense of gravity swept through the entire earth vein. The earth veins, spiritual qi swallowed and released dense light. Immediately, the small space was filled with an extremely heavy feeling. Are you sure that he left behind the blood sword fruit? Duanmu Xiaoman nodded heavily. The atmosphere was cold, and her eyebrows were furrowed. A sense of danger and coldness descended at the same time. It was extremely solemn. In the 20 years after he disappeared, I have been looking for traces of him. I have searched all over the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean, but there was no trace of him. Duanmu Xiaoman sighed faintly, lifted her foot, and took a step forward. With her back facing Su Yi, she said, After that, I still did not give up. I just set my sights on Yinzhou. I searched all over Yinzhou because I believed that as long as I found the thing that Qingtian talked about and guarded it well, Qingtian would be able to come back. Duanmu Xiaoman's nose twitched slightly, and her moon-like eyes were deep as she said, I did not find it until recently, when I discovered that there were unusual movements under the broken sword ocean. So, I changed the location of the soul riding tournament. Otherwise, Zhuqiu Feng and the others would not be enough to make me leave the mountain. But I did not expect that such danger was hidden under the broken sword ocean. It was far from what I imagined. As soon as she finished speaking, a trace of coldness flashed through Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes, and the coiling soul energy instantly spread out. In the next moment, her graceful and moving figure seemed to have frozen. Facing the faint light of the earth vein, Duanmu Xiaoman started to tell him about the past between her and her younger brother in detail. Su Yi was actually extremely silent for a moment. He just wanted to look at her quietly. Her voice did not tremble at all, and it was gentle and dignified as usual. However, Su Yi could feel that the woman before him was trembling slightly. When it came to Duanmu Qingtian, she was really extremely weak, like a little white rabbit that needed someone to protect. How could she not have her own weak points? Perhaps she took me in as her disciple because the blood sword fruit was refined by the blood fiend sword. Alas, Su Yi sighed lightly. The sad thing was that the blood sword fruit had finally taken shape, but Duanmu Qingtian had not returned. Drip! A teardrop was like rain falling from the eaves, and it dripped onto the earth vein like a string of pearls. After that, it transformed into an even smaller teardrop that flew into the sky. The teardrop soaked the ground, and at the same time, it soaked Su Yi's heart. The otherworldly Duanmu Xiaoman was pure white and flawless. At this moment, Su-yi did not have any distracting thoughts, yet he couldn't help but walk towards Duanmu Xiaoman. He stretched out his hands and embraced Duanmu Xiaoman. In an instant, Su-yi was able to feel the Duanmu Xiaoman tremble slightly, and it was as if she had been electrocuted. Chapter 17:20. Bairuoying's snowy face trembled slightly. Duanmu Xiaoman's voice trembled a little as she sobbed. What are you doing?" Without any resistance, Duanmu Xiaoman only felt a bit of numbness as she stood there, as if she had no bones. "Nothing, I just want to hug you." Su-yi sighed, only to find that Duanmu Xiaoman's body twitched and became even stiffer. "I don't need your sympathy." Duanmu Xiaoman maintained her calm and tried to appear as calm as possible. Su-yi took a deep breath and hugged Duanmu Xiaoman even tighter. Through the light clothes and gauze, he could feel the satin-like jade back sliding slightly across Su-yi's chest. The extremely comfortable feeling made Su-yi slowly close his eyes. "I know, none of us needs sympathy," Su-yi said in a low voice. "I'm the same as you. My parents disappeared when I was young, but I have a very good sister who is very lovable." Duanmu Xiaoman's body trembled when she heard that Su-yi had the same experience as her for the first time. "Is she okay?" Frowning slightly, Su-yi slightly opened his eyes. His dark eyes flashed with endless depth. "She and my good brother went to an extremely dangerous place to look for me. I also looked for her, but from then on, I couldn't find her anymore. There was a time when I thought I had lost her, but after experiencing so much, I know that she must still be alive and waiting for me somewhere." Leaning against Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful back, Su-yi felt the most reliable and reassured as he continued softly. "I understand the pain of losing a loved one, so you took care of Serene and the others, and took care of Grandpa and the others. I'm very grateful for your kindness. You're my master now, so I'll help you look for her in the future. We both have to believe that she must be waiting for you somewhere." Inside the entrance, the iron soulfish clicked his tongue twice and clapped his hands at Su-yi. "Good boy, but getting more and more skilled now. You still know that she's your master. You're hugging your master like this? Bah, shameless human." Su-yi couldn't help but roll his eyes, then secretly thought, "I'm just speaking from the bottom of my heart. Since Duanmu Qingtian's disappearance is related to Elder Su's injury, then this matter is my business. Duanmu Xiaoman, I won't let you bear all of this alone." Hearing Su-yi's words, Duanmu Xiaoman's cold body temperature seemed to rise in an instant, and an invisible fluctuation spread out in her mind. Leaning against Duanmu Xiaoman, Su-yi could smell a faint fragrance in the air. It was extremely pleasant, and the two people maintained this ambiguous position. After a while, the corners of Duanmu Xiaoman's mouth curled up slightly. The long-awaited relaxation in her heart was finally released. Tilting her head, her soft black hair slid across Su-yi's cheek, and the cold temperature spread all over her body. She faintly said to Su-yi behind her, "So are you done hugging?" A bone-chilling coldness instantly climbed to the back of Su-yi's head, and his body suddenly retreated, a ball of fire flying in the air. Su-yi shot back like an arrow from a bow, and instantly lowered his head and said, "Master, I—" Su-yi's throat rolled, and only then did he realize how bold his actions were. Looking straight ahead, he lowered his head and looked at the ground, thinking, "It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over, it's over. This is not a simple woman. This is the ice beauty of Jutian Palace who has lived for more than 100 years. Cough, cough." Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were like water, and she looked at Su-yi with an aloof and luxurious gaze. The sadness from before had been swept away, and seeing Su-yi in front of her trembling and frightened, she felt it was quite funny. "You're that scared of me?" Su-yi instantly raised his head and stared at Duanmu Xiaoman without fear, and replied, "Not scared. How funny." The soul puppet immediately replied. Su-yi couldn't help but curse in his heart. "If you say another word, I'll pour the energy of the ball of light into your entrance, and let you eat to your heart's content. Su Yi exclaimed in surprise. The soul puppet immediately shut its mouth after hearing Su Yi's harsh words. Master, what kind of enemies does martial Uncle Qing Tian have outside? Is it Saint Mountain? Hearing this, Duanmu Xiaoman instantly became somewhat arrogant, and her gaze revealed a trace of coldness. A sect like Saint Mountain is not worthy of Qing Tian's attention. I heard that the Li clan was also annihilated because of Saint Mountain. Su Yi nodded heavily and simply recounted the matter of the Li clan's annihilation. Boom! A strong tornado-like spiritual energy instantly spread throughout the entire underground space, and the air rumbled, as if it was the end of the world, enveloping Su Yi. Immediately, the wind stopped, and Duanmu Xiaoman's long skirt fluttered, revealing a pair of long white legs. Su Yi immediately shifted his gaze away. This old woman from Saint Mountain doesn't want to live anymore. At the Tianfeng ranking tournament, I will not let Saint Mountain have any peace. Master, are you going to the Tianfeng ranking tournament too? Su Yi was pleasantly surprised. Duanmu Xiaoman, who had not left the palace for tens of years, was actually going to participate in the Tianfeng ranking tournament. Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze, he was filled with coldness. If you don't come out soon, some people will actually forget about the existence of Imperial Palace. It's time for the world to look up to the name of Imperial Palace again. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes. Her heart was filled with coldness, and endless coldness instantly filled her heart. This time, the Tianfeng ranking tournament was going to cause a huge commotion. Su Yi once again recalled Merciless West's words. Imperial Palace had never participated in the matters of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Furthermore, the arrogance and innate nature of weapon refiners, alchemists, and soul controllers caused them to never fight with worldly affairs. After a long time, Imperial Palace had become stronger and stronger, and had gradually become the largest power outside of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions. Just Heaven Drive Chuan, this group of terrifying soul controller masters, was already much stronger than martial artists of the same age. Furthermore, Imperial Palace controlled the pill recipes and weapons of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Back then, the Limitless sect had suffered greatly under the suppression of Imperial Palace. Thinking up to here, Su Yi's mouth could not help but twitch, and a sly smile appeared on his face. Holy Mountain, this time, I'll let you guys have a taste of some good fruit. Su Yi's shoulders moved, and a series of cracking sounds could be heard from his hands. Just what kind of enemy does martial Uncle Qing Tian have? Even Holy Mountain is not a match for him. I've always been thinking about those ancient families and powers. Back then, Qing Tian had no match in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. That's why he roamed the world in search of the strongest existences to bring Imperial Palace to the peak. The only ones who could injure Duanmu Qing Tian were those ancient sects that had never appeared in the world. I've bitterly cultivated for so many years, all for this time. Su Yi's mind quickly turned, and his brows furrowed as he muttered, could it be those ancient powers that Elder Xie Wushu mentioned? Chapter 1721. In this world, there were actually existences that were above the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions. What kind of peerless experts were hidden within these ancient families? Su Yi's heart trembled slightly. The Heavenly Wind ranking tournament, this time, was organized by a few great families. In a few days, he would be able to see the strongest existences in the entire continent. Strength. In a world where martial arts were respected, nothing could surpass absolute strength. With less than a week left, Su Yi's heart began to grow heavy. Can I really raise my strength before the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament? Time is tight. Su Yi gritted his teeth as a cold light flashed in his eyes. His cold brows caused Duanmu Xiaoman to raise her eyebrows slightly. Jing once asked me to properly participate in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. This time, I will definitely let the world know of my existence. This way, I will be able to see Jing, heavily nodding his head. Su Yi's eyes flashed with determination. Don't think too much. Saying too much to you now will only harm you. That is not an existence that you can defeat. Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze was slightly heavy as she faintly said, You should have heard about the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. This time, I will meet with Su Kuanga, and I will also have a good meeting with those forces. After hiding for so many years, there are many debts that should be settled properly. Her body trembling, Duanmu Xiaoman once again looked at Su Yi and said, Can you tell me the location of that person? Su Yi's gaze was heavy as he raised his hand to touch his chin, following which, he told Duanmu Xiaoman the location. Duanmu Xiaoman repeated the location twice as she muttered to herself. However, there are currently many people from the Holy Mountain stationed in the Savage Demon Forest. If Master goes there, you must be careful. People from the Holy Mountain? Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful eyelashes drooped slightly as she nodded her head thoughtfully. All right, you said you want to learn the soul control technique. Tell me, how much do you know about the art of controlling the heavens? Su Yi nodded and said, When Senior gave me the art of controlling the heavens, he only taught me some simple techniques to control the remnant souls. Duanmu Xiaoman looked at Su Yi, nodded and said, The art of driving heaven is the foundation of our driving heaven palace. When our ancestor first built the driving heaven palace, he used the driving heaven vein as the foundation to comprehend the art of driving heaven. The art of driving the heavens is open for everyone to learn, but the complete art of driving the heavens has never been shown to anyone. Su Yi was slightly shocked and asked in a low voice, Then is my art of driving the heavens complete? Who? The soul energy that engulfed the entire sky was like a snowstorm. Su Yi was instantly wrapped up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Su Yi was stunned. Same origin, Duanmu Xiaoman said indifferently, but her crescent eyebrows unnaturally raised. Duanmu Xiaoman came closer and saw Su Yi's scattered soul energy. She bitterly smiled in her heart and asked, What is the quality of your soul now? He then took out a half-step heaven-grade badge and handed it to Duanmu Xiaoman. It was a dazzling golden color. Su Yi said, Elder Gyue once told me that my soul is above the heaven rank, but the Central Province only has half-step heaven rank badges. He told me to make do with it. Oh, Duanmu Xiaoman had a strange look and said to Su Yi, The path of soul control is incomparably difficult. People only know that the heaven rank soul is the highest quality, but there are also differences in quality. Otherwise, with so many heaven rank soul cultivators in the palace of driving the heavens, wouldn't they all be equally powerful? Su Yi nodded. This was the same logic as the cultivation of martial arts. Everyone said that the Yuan domain realm was the highest realm. But for what the soul puppet bee said, the 10 realms from Qi refining to Yuan domain were only the initial stages. To reach the next major realm was harder than ascending to the heavens. Yes, just like Master, you have reached the half-step Yuan sky realm that no one else can. Su Yi smiled and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman with envy. Duanmu Xiaoman was surprised by Su Yi's words. She was clearly shocked that Su Yi knew about the Yuan sky realm. That's right. The Palace of Driving the Heavens set the rules for all souls. According to the ancestors' research, heaven-rank souls are also divided into different grades. Su Yi's body bent slightly, his shoulders moving slightly. Looking carefully at Duanmu Xiaoman was a little embarrassed and continued. For example, a soul control master can attract remnant souls. A soul control master with a fire attribute can only attract remnant souls with a fire attribute. Do you know why this is? Could it be that the quality of souls is also divided into the 5 elements? Su Yi didn't understand. Souls were like water, formless and formless. They were like milky white gas in the heart and soul. How could there be differences in attributes? Duanmu Xiaoman said softly. Su Yi's comprehension ability had made her look at him in a new light. It's good for a normal martial artist to have 1 or 2 Yuan Qi attributes. If they have too many, it will be disadvantageous for them. Su Yi shook his head and sighed. He was once said to have the potential to be a servant because he had 4 different elemental yuan qi. Yuan qi is energy. A soul that has lost its body will remain in the human world as a remnant soul. Therefore, the soul is also a type of energy. Under the broken sword sea, the blood sword fruit absorbed the remnant soul's energy. After a short pause, Duanmu Xiaoman said, "Therefore, the yuan qi in a martial artist's body will constantly nourish the soul. The soul will also constantly adapt to the yuan qi attributes and actively get close to the yuan qi that is easy to adapt to. Sometimes, the soul can also force out the yuan qi. This is the reason." Su Yi nodded his head thoughtfully. This was probably the case when he forcefully squeezed out yuan qi from his meridians. Immediately after, Duanmu Xiaoman raised her palm, an extremely subtle azure soul energy, like silk threads, surrounded Su Yi's body. Immediately, Su Yi could feel his soul become extremely comfortable. A warm and cool feeling filled his entire body. The Tian Yuan demon soul's light flickered, as if it enjoyed being surrounded by such light. The great void spirit sea in his body spun crazily. In a miniature whirlpool, the water attribute yuan qi also started to circulate rapidly. The soul will constantly change and adapt to the yuan qi attributes in a body according to it. A soul controller uses the remnant soul to sense the yuan qi attributes in the surroundings. Similarly, a soul controller can also sense the yuan qi attributes in his own body. Su Yi could not help but be excited. He slowly started to circulate the art of controlling heaven and closed his eyes to ponder. Duanmu Xiaoman continued. Everyone thinks that martial arts are martial arts, and soul controller is soul controller. The two are not related. Actually, in the end, the two are intertwined. Why can a martial artist of the Yuan domain realm master the space domain? How can they create their own rules in their own space domain to make themselves invincible? It depends on the complete control of the yuan qi attributes in the surrounding space. In other words, if the soul is not close to the yuan qi attributes, it will never be able to reach the yuan ancestor realm. Chapter 17:22. Following Duanmu Xiaoman's words, Su Yi quietly sensed the changes in his surroundings and imagined the scene when Duanmu Xiaoman had used the 1,000 Frost godly snow seal. Su Yi muttered to himself and said softly, "No wonder so many people can't reach the origin ancestor realm in their entire lives. It's because their soul quality isn't high enough, making it difficult for them to get close to the spatial yuan qi attribute. The origin ancestor realm spatial domain is a pure yuan qi domain with extremely pure 5 elements attributes. Combining soul, energy, and yuan qi attributes into one is the origin of the spatial technique, unique to the higher origin domain realm." Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flickered as a trace of shock appeared on her fair face. Spatial techniques are both yuan qi attacks and extremely terrifying soul attacks at the same time. The golden dragon technique you used under the broken sword sea was a spatial technique. However, I don't know how you were able to use such a peerless technique at the origin emperor realm. Su Yi, who was carefully sensing the changes in the surrounding yuan qi, felt uneasy when he heard what Duanmu Xiaoman said. "I can't tell Duanmu Xiaoman that I inherited the golden dragon remnant soul and blood essence and used that to activate the technique." Suddenly, countless tiny snowflakes revolve around Su Yi as an unprecedented perception of yuan qi attribute lingered in Su Yi's mind. Su Yi suddenly opened his eyes. "Your soul quality's perception of the water attribute has already reached a very high level. It should be caused by the crimson water sky crystal in your body." Su Yi looked deeply at Duanmu Xiaoman and thought to himself, "So she knows everything." Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful eyes narrowed as she crossed her arms and looked at the changes in the soul energy around Su Yi. She said softly, "Ordinary martial artists don't have a high soul quality, and their soul energy can't sense the Yuan Qi attribute. They can only activate the Yuan Qi attribute in their body. Then, with a trace of pride in her voice, she continued, "But soul controllers are different. Soul controllers have extremely high soul quality and are born with a strong perception of the Yuan Qi attribute in their body and spatial laws. If one understood the rules of space, they would be able to break through the shackles of martial artists and become a peerless powerhouse. Therefore, soul controllers are born to be powerful, able to stand proudly in the world, surpassing ordinary people by several times." "Isn't there one in front of you?" Su Yi chuckled. Duanmu Xiaoman was not only a rank 6 soul controller, but also a half-step Yuan Tian realm cultivator. From his point of view, Duanmu Xiaoman was simply too powerful. But how difficult is it to be close to one's own Yuan Qi attribute? I have been in seclusion for so many years, and only then did I comprehend this principle. The art of driving the heaven is actually extremely powerful, and the art of driving the heaven that is used in the Heaven Controlling Palace right now has been improved by countless seniors and ancestors, and there is not a single person who has truly comprehended the art of driving the heaven. Duanmu Xiaoman frowned slightly and said softly, "Therefore, the soul quality of Yuan Zone realm cultivators is not weak. As their martial arts cultivation increases, they will also cultivate soul energy." Su Yi came to a sudden realization. Previously, when he fought with Chun Feng Xiao, or the Yuan Zone realm experts of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, Su Yi could feel that his soul energy was being crushed. That's right. This is the difficult part of breaking through to the Yuan Zone realm and the Yuan Domain realm. However, soul controllers don't have this problem. Even if the Yuan Qi attribute is chaotic, it's not a problem. Duanmu Xiaoman stretched out her small snow-white hand again, and the surrounding space instantly froze. She cast an expectant gaze at Su Yi. "Your soul quality is already extremely close to the water attribute Yuan Qi." Then, Duanmu Xiaoman pointed at the crystal-clear earth vein that spread from the ground to the wall and said, "This earth vein is originally an incomparably huge, soul-testing crystal. It can gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. It can definitely test your soul energy." As she spoke, she gestured for Su Yi to walk over. His entire body trembled. Su Yi pondered for a moment and approached the earth vein. Buzz buzz. The part of the earth vein that was exposed outside the wall was colorful and emitted an extremely dazzling light. At each section, there was a protruding part. Layer after layer, the entire earth vein was divided into 7 sections. In each section, there were 7 black cracks that coiled around the earth vein. The entire thing looked like an incomparably gorgeous bamboo. Sui could not help but be curious. This was the first time Su Yi had seen such a soul-testing earth vein. The cultivation level of a soul controller is equivalent to the Yuan Emperor realm at the 4th grade. If one wants to reach the 5th grade, one's perception of the Yuan Qi attribute is even stronger. Therefore, it has to be at the heaven grade. This is the difference between a soul controller status and a blacksmith's and alchemist's. Not only is it more difficult to cultivate, but it is also extremely harsh on one's own conditions. Duanmu Xiaoman stood at the side and said faintly, "The heaven-grade soul spirit will be divided into the 7 aspects of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning according to the 5 elements closest to it. Similarly, there are 9 levels. Your water element heaven grade should have reached the 5th level." She sensed the changes in Su Yi's soul energy and said softly, "Previously, I let you recuperate in the mysterious Yin 5 elements pool to let you have a new understanding of soul energy. Your perception is not bad. After coming out, you have already reached the middle stage of the 3rd grade. What did you reach the early stage of the 4th grade?" Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with surprise. Although it was only the difference of the Yuan Emperor realm, it was simply impossible for a beginner in soul technique. Duanmu Xiaoman recalled the day when the crimson heavenly crystal emerged from Su Yi's body and felt relieved. The early stage of the fourth grade is the assessment of your overall soul energy. A more detailed assessment will depend on the ley line. It's the same. Put your hand on it. Su-yi looked back at Duan Xiaoman. A trace of expectation flashed across her beautiful face. Then, Su-yi gently placed his hand on the ley line. Immediately, the ley line shone brightly. The multicolored soul energy was like a living creature. It whizzed out and surrounded Su-yi. Countless pores opened up and greedily sucked in the soul energy. The heaven-origin demon soul in his body was like a dazzling sun as it fused with the multicolored soul energy. As his soul trembled, the four elements of earth, wood, water, and fire began to stir in his meridians. Hiss, hiss. The divine mystical meridians were extremely wide. It was enough to allow the four elements to rush into his sea of consciousness at the same time. A wonderful feeling interspersed within. Boom! Like the earth, wood, and boulders, the natural calm feeling of the earth. Su-yi felt as though the earth was filled with dust and the vicissitudes of the world was overbearing. Huff, huff! A storm engulfed Su-yi's body. The wind element energy surged like a tornado and seemed to want to tear Su-yi's meridians to shreds. Chi-chi, ice crystals entangled. The white wind element energy was instantly replaced by the blue water element energy. The thunderous water dragon carried a domineering and destructive aura. It was like a tsunami that overturned the rivers and seas. Calm, wonderful book house. Chapter 1723. Awu, the divine bird, opened its eyes, and Su-yi seemed to see the divine bird Ao Tian in front of him. Endless flames danced in the sky. The rolling clouds began to condense rapidly. The sea of fire surged, and the flames in its huge mouth were about to devour the entire world. Duan Xiaoman, who was standing beside Su-yi, had long changed her expression. Her aura surged, and her protective light shield was instantly activated. Blue ice crystals covered her body, making her look like a jade person. Her cold face couldn't help but change. Above the earth vein, after connecting with the five-colored soul, the light was sometimes high and sometimes low. There were four sections of the earth vein that were constantly surging, and the light rushed into the sky, instantly illuminating the entire earth vein space, as if it was daytime. Above the earth vein, the two colors, one blue and one red, were extremely dazzling. They were crystal clear like jade, and the speed at which the light was climbing was extremely frightening. The other two colors, yellow and white, were a little dimmer, but they were also climbing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ooh! Duan Xiaoman, who was standing at the side, had a look of surprise. Looking at Su-yi, who was already wrapped in the five-colored light, she closed her eyes and muttered in a low voice. How can he have four types of Yuan Qi attributes? Around Su-yi's body, there was a whistling sound like wind and thunder, and the crackling light formed a spiral around Su-yi's body. This, very quickly, the four types of Yuan Qi attributes swept out from between Su-yi's eyebrows, hands, and feet. A mighty wind filled the air, and sand and stones flew everywhere. The violent movement resounded throughout the entire earth vein space, and Duan Xiaoman and Su-yi's clothes were blown up. Standing behind Su-yi, Duan Xiaoman suddenly thought of the scene of Su-yi pressing her down on the chair, and a strange thought arose spontaneously. The clouds crept up her snow-white neck, and she couldn't help but quietly turn her beautiful face away, pursing her red lips tightly. Roar! A sharp screech resounded through the sky, as if it wanted to break through the earth veins and soar into the nine heavens. For streams of mixed Yuan Qi shot towards the earth vein like pillars of light. Then the earth vein produced a sonic boom. As the primordial Qi entered his meridians, the light that had just been emitted instantly became even more dazzling. An even more blazing light made the space of the earth meridians as bright as day. Buzz! The blue and red lights were moving together toward the fifth crack. The yellow and white light gradually slowed down. The long tail of the light stopped when it reached the second and third cracks. In the end, the remaining two beams of light were indescribably ferocious. They continuously broke through the third and fourth cracks. The entire space began to tremble slightly in an instant. Strong shock waves struck the void, causing ripples to appear in the space. The heaven-tier soul, formed by the fusion of such a mixture of Yuan Qi attributes, is actually so powerful. He's already at the second level of the earth phase and the third level of the wind phase. There was a slight fluctuation in her eyes. Duanmu Xiaoman waved her arm in the air, and the world suddenly became still. The fluctuation also disappeared instantly. But how can the fire phase and water phase be so powerful? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were full of splendor. As soon as she finished speaking, the light burst out again. Su Yi, whose eyes were tightly shut, clenched his fists slightly, and the energy in his body instantly soared to the extreme. His soul energy surged like waves, and a low roar came from his throat. Boom! All of a sudden, the blue and red rays of light had already reached the fifth layer of cracks. This meant that Su Yi's heaven-tier soul had already reached the fifth level of the water phase and the fifth level of the fire phase. Then, the blue light stopped and finally landed on the fifth blue crack, and there was no longer any trend of rising. The water phase is indeed at the fifth level, but why is the fire phase soul still rising? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. Her heart was pounding. Could it be that he was still breaking through? She stared at Su Yi, and her snow-white hands unconsciously clenched, as if she was inspecting it herself. She was inexplicably nervous. After a long while, the red light finally stopped and finally landed between the fifth and sixth crack. At this time, Su Yi's energy dissipated, and the light turned into countless light rain sprinkling on the soil and was absorbed by the ley lines again. Slowly opening his eyes, he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air from his throat, and the world was incomparably clear. Su Yi was overjoyed. He could feel the energy of the ley lines pouring into his body. Every cell and pore in his body exuded boundless vitality. His previous injuries had also healed quite a bit. Amazing, Su Yi whispered to himself, and looked at his hands in disbelief. Amazing indeed. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. Duanmu Xiaoman stood gracefully in front of him, her snow-white clothes shining with a holy light, and her beautiful eyes shining, like a goddess from heaven. Cough, cough. Coughing lightly, Su Yi said softly, "Master, how is it? What element phase soul do I belong to?" Duanmu Xiaoman also paused for a moment and pointed at the ley line light awkwardly and moved her lips slightly. "See for yourself." Su Yi nodded his chin, leaned forward, and said with his nose twitching slightly, Earth Phase 2, Wind Phase 3, Water Phase 5. Is this Fire Phase 5 or 6? Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful eyes rolled around. She turned around and lightly tapped her foot. Above the fifth layer and below the sixth layer. Su Yi suddenly scratched his head and said with a little pity, "Why don't I directly break through to Phase 6? Is it because I'm not strong enough?" Duanmu Xiaoman was slightly startled and lightly hit Su Yi's head and said, "You're really greedy. A non-elemental heaven phase soul already means that your Yuan Qi attribute perception is much stronger than most people. And if you reach a very close level with a certain Yuan Qi attribute, then there will be a change of Phase 1. Normally, a top-level soul controlling cultivator can only reach Phase 2, or at most Phase 3. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with anger, and said, "You have 4 Yuan Qi attributes, but none of them are weak. It is already a miracle that your soul can be close to all 4 Yuan Qi attributes at the same time." Hearing Duanmu Xiaoman's words, Su Yi instantly broke into a grin. "If that's the case, then I'm pretty good." Su Yi raised his eyebrows, stared at Duanmu Xiaoman's cold little face, and said, "Master, what is your cultivation level?" Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful eyebrows slightly twitched, and her exquisite chest moved up and down as she said, "Water phase 5, earth phase 4. Su-yi couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was only a half step away from Yuan Ti on stage, was actually not as good as him in terms of heaven phase soul. Didn't that mean that he could also reach the same level as Duanmu Xiaoman in the future? Su-yi took a step forward. His eyes were filled with anticipation, and said with a few big white teeth on the corner of his mouth, "What about Achu? He also has a heaven phase soul. You were also tested by Master before. How is he?" Chapter 17:24. Duanmu Xiaoman was a little embarrassed. Her calm face slightly changed as she said, "Wind phase level 1 and water phase level 3. At such a young age, you are already not weak." Su-yi nodded and said with a strange look, "Will the quality of this soul still increase in the future? The quality of the soul is different. The division of the attribute is based on the degree of closeness to the vitality attribute. The quality of the soul is basically fixed from birth. There won't be a huge change," Duanmu Xiaoman said. After a while, Duanmu Xiaoman's jade face was puzzled, casting an inquiring look at Su-yi. Su-yi felt that it wasn't accurate. If the degree of closeness to the vitality was the standard, his soul quality of the water phase obviously wasn't that high. Your control of fire seems to be stronger than your control of water. What's going on? Did you notice it before?" Su-yi was a little speechless. Of course, Su-yi knew what was going on with him. He had the inheritance of the Emperor Sparrow and the Golden Dragon. Furthermore, he had experienced the test of fire during the trial. It would be strange if his fire attribute wasn't strong. Su-yi seemed to understand a little. Could it be that because he had inherited the inheritance of the gods, the quality of the soul that couldn't be changed started to increase in his body? Su-yi stopped the violent tremors in his heart. He raised his head and looked at the wall as he said softly, "When I was young, I was called a loser. When I had the qualifications to do odd jobs, I would often go to the mouth of the volcano to cultivate. Maybe it was at that time that I cultivated it." Su-yi looked up at the sky and said thoughtfully. After a while, there was no sound. Su-yi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman and saw that she was in a daze. "What's wrong, Master?" Duanmu Xiaoman came back to her senses. She sniffed and said with some emotions, "Nothing. So you had it so hard when you were young too." "Huh, isn't it not so hard now? Master, I will be happy when I follow you in the future." As soon as he said that, Su-yi felt that this sentence was a little weird. Duanmu Xiaoman's expression also brightened. She moved her slim waist and said softly, "Be serious. The quality of your soul is already very good. It's time to teach you a soul skill." Yeah. Su-yi only found out that there were offensive moves that were similar to martial skills after coming to the Imperial Heavenly Palace. However, it was powered by soul energy and could form a soul attack on the enemy, interfering with the enemy's mind. It was very easy to gain the upper hand in a fight. They also had soul skills that could attract ancient remnant spirits. This was why soul controllers were so powerful. "I know soul skills too." Su-yi's eyebrows twitched. Instantly, the power of the white flood dragon god surged, and strong winds filled the world. An ancient soul energy instantly whipped up a whirlwind. Peerless dragon flash. Su-yi's chi was as deep as the abyss, and his body was filled with milky white light. In an instant, 4 human figures appeared on the spot. Su-yi's figure flashed, and he stood at the other end of the earth vein at the end of the light. Su-yi immediately surged with an extremely strong, formless energy. 4 figures flashed consecutively, like overlapping illusions. Immediately, 4 identical figures stood in front of Duanmu Xiaoman. Every frown, every smile, and every action were the same. Su-yi raised his head slightly and glanced at Duanmu Xiaoman. His face was full of arrogance and pride. "Master, what do you think of my soul skill?" The scene in front of her was very familiar. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes became misty, and her mind wavered. Her mind was immediately pulled back to a certain moment. There was also a handsome and elegant young man in front of him. He was dressed in a white robe and had a slender and handsome figure. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His heroic figure exuded an arrogant and wild aura. The scene changed to a white jade plaza. There was no wind in the surroundings. Countless imperial heavenly palace disciples gathered together. They looked at the youth's soul skill with curiosity. "Sister, go and find my sister." The youth shouted at the people around him. His hands and feet were flying up and down. The seals in his palms were mysterious and unpredictable. Mysterious runes that were as bright as the clouds surrounded the youth. The light enveloped him, and he was extraordinarily heroic. At this moment, a snow-white figure floated over from the crowd. Her beautiful face was as cold as before. Her long black hair fluttered, revealing a pair of limpid eyes. It was the young Duanmu Xiaoman. Her face was as white as the moon as she stared at the youth and snorted. "What are you doing?" "I'm cultivating. Don't disturb me if there's nothing." As if he had lost his temper, the youth looked around at the people around him. Then his thin lips curled. The corners of his mouth curled into a sinister arc, and 4 identical phantoms appeared behind him in an instant. "Sister, what's there to cultivate with that lousy martial art of yours? Watch my soul skill." The handsome young man tapped lightly on the ground with the tip of his foot. Instantly, his body shot up several hundred feet into the air and stood there. His aura was incomparably domineering. The 4 figures merged into one in the air. Bright rings of light burst out, illuminating the clear sky in a riot of colors. Suddenly, the wind whistled and the clouds changed color. The entire world was filled with wild and unrestrained soul energy. It covered the sky and covered the earth. Powerful energy rolled in all directions. Whoosh! The youth looked down at the Imperial Heavenly Palace. Countless Imperial Heavenly Palace disciples covered their foreheads with one hand. All of the onlookers frowned at the godlike youth. Their eyes were filled with envy and shock. "Little white flood dragon!" the youth roared. In the distance, a white divine light rushed over. In the next moment, the youth stood on the head of the flood dragon with his hands behind his back. The white flood dragon spanned across the sky. Its eyes were like copper bells, shining with a ferocious aura. The scales covering its body were shining brightly under the light. It was incomparably tough. With a light touch, the entire world trembled. The youth leaned forward and placed his hands on his knees. He was full of smiles. Gradually, his smile turned from a light smile to a hearty laugh. "Sister, I've fused with the little white flood dragon's strength. How is it? Isn't it powerful?" Duanmu Xiaoman nodded. The corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Then, she withdrew her expression. Her eyes were cold as she stared at the youth in the sky. "You're already the acting palace master. How can you be so unruly? I'll go tell master." It turned out that the young man was Duanmu Qingtian. Duanmu Qingtian let out a hearty laugh as he rode the white serpent god into the distance. Only Duanmu Xiaoman's shocked expression and a long string of echoes were left in the sky. "I'll be the official palace master next month. Sister, I'm going out to travel. I've already told master. When I come back, I'll bring you something good." When Duanmu Xiaoman's fan-like eyelashes fluttered again, she was already back in the dark and gloomy space. The wind whistled, and energy filled the sky. There were 4 identical figures. Su Yi's eyes were filled with pride. Duanmu Xiaoman exhaled a deep breath of orchid air. Her palms flipped, and a waterfall heavily struck the farthest phantom from the earth vein. Chapter 1725. Bang! With a muffled sound, the 4 phantoms shrank into a ball. As the light dissipated, a wail resounded through the underground space. Su Yi's true body clutched his arm as he leaned against the wall, grimacing in pain. The numbness in his body was unbearable, and even his bones were beginning to ache. "It won't last long. You're starting to hit me again." Su Yi cursed in his heart. In the distance, Duanmu Xiaoman walked over to Su Yi's side. Her curvaceous figure instantly drew close to Su Yi as she spoke coldly. "Insignificant tricks can only please the crowd. This move of yours won't even be able to withstand a single blow from a true soul expert. It's best to use it sparingly." Su Yi's nose twitched, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Instantly, he fell silent, but his eyes were filled with resentment. "Let's go." Duanmu Xiaomon's lips parted, and her lithe body suddenly spun, bringing with it countless ice crystals. A pitch-black spatial crack appeared out of thin air. In the next second, Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman had arrived at a mountaintop covered in snow and ice. The mountaintop was flat and open, and one could see everything at a glance. Large snowflakes fell from the sky, and the cold wind blew into Su Yi's clothes. Immediately, Su Yi sucked in a deep breath of cold air, his eyes filled with shock. He was already a heaven-rank fire aspect soul, so why did he feel so cold here? All around him was endless white snow, and there was not a single trace of life. It was like a deathly stillness. Amidst the abundant water attribute Yuan Qi, Su Yi could sense that every snowflake contained an extremely dense soul energy. It seemed incomparably open, but in reality, the soul energy had created a small space here. Without time to think, Su Yi suddenly felt as if every meridian in his body was about to freeze, and his entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. He hugged his arms and trembled. He wanted to circulate his fire attribute Yuan Qi, but it was extinguished in an instant. Su Yi could not help but feel dejected. The soul energy here was too dense, and his fourth-rank soul energy was not enough at all. His mind was in turmoil, and it was as if he was enduring a monstrous pressure. Su Yi felt as if he was being stepped on by a mountain. On the other hand, Duanmu Xiaoman, who had arrived first, seemed to be enjoying this extremely low temperature. Su Yi asked in a trembling voice, "Master, where is this place?" Duanmu Xiaoman didn't speak. Her phoenix brows and bright eyes flashed with a trace of light. She flashed under a huge snow tree. Soon after, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes shot out a cold glint, her long black hair fluttering in the white snow. The snow that filled the sky was like a tornado, roaring as it surrounded Duanmu Xiaoman. Su Yi turned pale with fright. Just as he was about to reach out, the wind cut his hands, and his heart was filled with indescribable horror. My diamond body is actually unable to resist in this kind of place? What kind of place is this? Silver-white snow crystals fluttered in the air. Duanmu Xiaoman, with her long hair, was surrounded by a divine radiance. The radiance was incomparably bright, and it revolved around Duanmu Xiaoman like fairies. It was like a bell, and it did not dissipate for a long time. Ding, ding. The ice crystals, which were spinning faster and faster, froze around Duanmu Xiaoman, but at the same time, they fell rapidly like thousands of steel cones. Pung, 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 boom. Suddenly, the entire snow tree fell rapidly, and with a loud bang, it collapsed. Continuous sonic booms rang out, and the snowy waterfall filled the air. The white snow that covered the sky and the sun formed a huge white light wall. After a long while, the place where the snow tree fell exposed a round, crystal-clear pool, and it was suffused with a clear white light. Even Su Yi, who was far away, could feel the temperature of the cold water. It was so low that it made one's hair stand on end. It was as if one's foot would be directly crippled if one stepped on it. Staring at the white cold water in the distance, Su Yi still did not understand why Duanmu Xiaoman brought him to this place, and he did not dare to move forward rashly. In front of Duanmu Xiaoman, who was a half step away from Yuan Tian realm, he, who was in Yuan Emperor, was like a noob. He did not know anything, and there were surprises everywhere. After a while, the surrounding cold made Su Yi unable to withstand it, and he took a deep breath. Immediately, Su Yi formed a hand seal, and his eyes twitched. He activated the Origin Supreme Art, and the golden dragon aura surged to his limbs, but it still did not improve. On the contrary, because the Yuan Qi flowed faster, waves of cold current took the opportunity to flow through his wide meridians and into his limbs, increasing the coldness. Hiss, what is this place? Why is it so strange? Duanmu Xiaoman, who was not far away, moved slightly and returned to Su Yi's side and said lightly, "This is the heaven burial cold ground." At this moment, Su Yi's eyebrows and ears were already covered with snowflakes. His body trembled slightly as he looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, and his eyes were filled with confusion. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were solemn, and she said after pondering for a while, "This is the place where countless ancestors of the heavenly command palace died. All the soul energy experts will predict their own death in advance, and at that time, they will come to the heaven burial cold ground to return the last bit of soul energy to the heavenly command palace. Their cultivation was given to them by the heavenly command palace, so when they return, they will also choose to give their cultivation to the heavenly command palace. This is the belief of the heavenly command palace." As soon as she finished speaking, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of sadness, and she murmured, "My master also died here." The surrounding snow was boundless, and the strong wind blew snow droplets all over the sky. Sui could not help but be shocked. This is the soul returning tomb of the previous sect masters. In the snow, Sui could not help but understand. This was the highest point of the heavenly command palace. No wonder it was so cold. In addition, this was the place where generations of experts died, and the accumulation of soul energy over the years, the water attribute Yuan Qi, had also reached an uncontrollable point. Thinking of this, Su Yi unconsciously approached Duanmu Xiaoman. He glanced at Duanmu Xiaoman and found that there was not a single ice crystal remaining on Duanmu Xiaoman's body. The spinning ice crystals in the air always maintained a certain distance from Duanmu Xiaoman. Not too close, not too far, and not too close. It was as if they were constantly revolving around her body. "Master, then why did you bring me here?" After a pause, Duanmu Xiaoman took a step forward, and then her hand seals changed, and each of them seemed to be able to distort space. The wind and snow that filled the sky instantly stopped in mid-air. Time seemed to have stopped abruptly at this moment. Su Yi's heart shook, and he exclaimed, "So powerful!" With respect in her eyes, Duanmu Xiaoman's jade hand seals and snow filled the sky again. Chapter 17:26. This is the place where I comprehended the 1,000 frost, godly snow seal. At this moment, Su Yi was gradually immersed in the extreme cold. Duanmu Xiaoman's indifferent words flowed into Su Yi's ears. The 1,000 frost, godly snow seal is based on the foundation of the spatial domain. Only Yuan domain realm experts can comprehend a spatial technique. However, the quality of your soul has already reached the 5th stage of the water domain realm. The temperature of the burial frost ground is not enough to kill you immediately. You can challenge yourself in this environment with abundant water attribute origin energy and comprehend your own soul skill. It's not enough to kill me immediately. I'm already about to die. The iron soulfish grumbled. Su Yi shook his head and said, "Master, are you not going to teach me soul skills yourself?" Duanmu Xiaoman's crescent brows furrowed slightly. A palm print flew out from her hand. The azure origin energy in her hands instantly transformed into a long shadow. Wherever the shadow passed, a biting cold whirlwind appeared in the air, carving out a ghastly ravine that was dozens of feet long. With a casual wave of her hand, Duanmu Xiaoman casually covered the ravine with snow, as if nothing had happened. She looked back at Su Yi with a cold gaze, like a proud red plum blossom in the snow, and said in a low voice, "Spatial techniques belong to you alone. Every top-notch expert has their own spatial technique. It's the same for soul skills. If I teach you a soul skill that everyone in Heavenly Command Palace can use, when you go out, what will you use to compete with others? Do you still have confidence in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament?" This sentence was like a bell that heavily struck Su Yi's heart. The pride and ambition of wanting to win first place was like a raging flame in his heart. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's indifferent voice sounded in his ears again. Your comprehension is not bad, but there's not much time left. Only by using this extreme method can you create your own soul skill. Su Yi took a deep breath and nodded heavily. Your fire attribute origin energy is higher, so you should use it to resist the cold. However, your soul cultivation is still too low, so it's counterproductive. You have to try to blend into this environment and feel the water attribute origin energy in the air. Under Duanmu Xiaoman's guidance, he began to condense a whirlpool at the bottom of his feet and circulate his water attribute origin energy. Azure origin energy surged out from his fingertips and wrapped around Su Yi's body like threads. Compared to before, using water attribute origin energy is better in this harsh environment. Master is right, Su Yi said happily. Duanmu Xiaoman nodded approvingly at Su Yi for being able to grasp the situation so quickly. The ice pond over there is where I once cultivated. One of them is the water that I brought up from the profound Yin 5 elements pool. After many years, it formed this ice pool. Su Yi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, and a bad feeling welled up in his heart. He said timidly, Master, you can't be asking me to go? Pointing at the ice pond, Duanmu Xiaoman didn't have the slightest room for discussion. She nodded slightly and said, You've even experienced a volcano. What's so scary about this 100-year ice pond? Su Yi's throat churned. Just standing in this world of ice and snow was already unbearable for Su Yi. If he went in again, wouldn't he be courting death? Su Yi revealed a bitter expression. Duanmu Xiaoman's jade face was solemn. She tapped Su Yi's forehead and shook her head. Without extreme cultivation, it's hard to achieve great things. I'll give you at most 1 day to adapt to this place. When I return, you must have 3 days to completely soak in the ice pond. Master, where are you going? Su Yi was slightly startled and blurted out. Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful figure moved slightly, slowly walking to the edge of the mountain peak. Looking down at the spirited drive Heaven Creek, she said faintly, I'm going to find a person you mentioned. Su Yi faintly sighed. In the end, he still couldn't persuade Duanmu Xiaoman. Thinking about it, Duanmu Qingtian had already left for more than 100 years. Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman's seductive back, her agile waist was like a willow tree in the wind. Su Yi said resolutely, All right, I'm going to the barbarian demon forest. Also, this disciple has a request. What is it? The sacred mountain has always been stationed in Barbarian City. It's next to the barbarian demon forest. It's a small city where I was born. If it's convenient, can you help me see what the sacred mountain is up to? All right, grandfather's wish is fulfilled. He has always been worried about the safety of Barbarian City. Duanmu Xiaoman pondered for a moment and said, I understand. After that, the icy blue whirlpool under her feet moved. Her beautiful figure was like a pool of water as her thin and weak body turned in the air. She pushed her hands horizontally, and her slender snow-white legs lightly tapped on the ground. Drawing an extremely charming arc in the air, she disappeared into the vast expanse. I'll definitely comprehend a soul skill. Su Yi shouted in the direction Duanmu Xiaoman left. The sound waves caused ripples to appear in the wind and snow that filled the sky. Rustle, rustle. Snow crystals flew down. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was hiding at the edge of a cliff, lowered her beautiful eyes. Hearing Su Yi's words, the corners of her mouth rose greatly for the first time. After that, Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes widened. Her figure jumped continuously as if she was teleporting. In the next moment, she was in another place. Her afterimages were almost impossible to see, and her figure was unpredictable. Sigh. After Duanmu Xiaoman left, Su Yi suddenly felt a little empty in his heart. He turned around and stared at the pool of sweat that was emitting white steam, lost in thought. Kid, the beauty left, and you're not in the mood to cultivate? The iron soulfish looked at Su Yi mockingly with a teasing expression. Su Yi lowered his head. His brows were full of seriousness as he spoke. This world is getting bigger and bigger than what I've seen. Old Tai, if I make you wait 100 years, What if that person isn't the Duanmu Qingtian? Or maybe it's the Duanmu Qingtian and she can't save him. 100 years isn't that long. It'll pass in the blink of an eye. He rolled his eyes and took a deep breath. White steam came out from the tip of his nose. But to a martial artist, 100 years could be a lifetime. If I can't see Sister Wan or Yun Jing for the rest of my life, how would I feel? Thinking of this, he tried to summon up his courage and approached the cold water. The cold water was light and clear, still flashing with waves of white light. It was like the eyes of a mountain peak, smooth and transparent. Then, he sat on the ground and looked at his reflection in the water. His dark eyes revealed incomparable determination. With his eyes closed, He smiled and said bitterly, "Then I'm afraid I'll die of sadness." Using his mind to probe, the cold north wind poured into his meridians. The Tian Yuan demon soul was like the sun, warming the surroundings. There was a woman with a beautiful face and a hot figure sitting inside. Her fiery red lips had a hint of wildness and charm. Chapter 17:27. He looked at Ling Qianxue, who was in the heaven origin demon soul, with concern. Seeing that she was cultivating peacefully, he was relieved. Feeling a surge of warmth, he rubbed his nose, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Qianxue had always been by his side. Thinking about it, this was a small comfort after going through so much. Squinting his eyes, the corner of his eyes twitched. He slowly exhaled. Huff. Then Suyi's palm print started to condense strangely. A rough sound came from his throat. "Even the volcano is here. Do you think I'm afraid of your stupid cold water?" He shouted angrily. Then, at the same time He shouted, He stood up. Splash! His body rose. He was like a whale entering the sea. Suddenly, he fell into the water. The violent fall set off a monstrous wave in the heaven burial cold lake. The snowflakes in the sky suddenly froze. In the sky, the water elemental energy seemed to be attracted. It suddenly gathered towards the cold water. "Can you King come down and tell me? It's so cold." The soul puppet beast roared crazily at the entrance. It stared at whose body temperature dropped to the extreme. The soul puppet beast that was in the middle of reincarnation was extremely weak. It couldn't help but shiver. The roars of the soul puppet beast kept ringing in his ears. At this time, Yi's divine sense was completely closed. As soon as he entered, the pervasive cold air along with the blue water elemental energy rushed into Yi's meridians. The tiny ice crystals quickly climbed into Yi's blood vessels and meridians, as if they were trying to freeze everything with temperature. The bright red blood turned from red to blue. On top of it, there was a thin layer of ice that was slightly red. It was extremely terrifying. Gudon! The violent heartbeat was like a bell ringing in the cold pool. Yi's clothes that were soaked by the pool water stuck tightly to his skin, faintly revealing some of his hard muscles. Yi, whose whole body was glowing with blue light and was tightly wrapped by the water attribute Yuan Qi, was completely unable to speak. His hand seals were stiff, and he couldn't even complete a set of hand seals. Within his wide meridians, unparalleled qi of vitality surged. The qi of vitality flowed rapidly towards the great void divine sea and the heavenly origin demonic soul. He furrowed his brows as he tried his best to protect his mind. The power of the Emperor Sparrow and the power of the Golden Dragon gradually surged from behind him as Duanmu Xiaoman's serene voice reverberated in his ears. Use your soul to sense the water-type origin energy that exists between heaven and earth, and comprehend your own soul skill. Only then can you walk on the path of a true expert. Hiss! Yi's trembling body was faintly discernible in the rising cold air. The sound of the pool water's movement was still incessant. Standing in the middle of the pool, he simply sat down and closed his eyes. In his mind, the powerful information of the art of controlling the heavens was circulating crazily. The trembling Su Yi's mouth moved slightly, as if he was repeating the art of controlling the heavens. Sitting cross-legged in the pool water, Hu Hao had already entered the state of selflessness and enlightenment. He focused his mind and qi, forgetting the flow of time and the viciousness of space. The iron soulfish in his body was surprised to find that the azure blue pool water in front of him gradually began to fluctuate rhythmically. Traces of qi of vitality rose from the pool water and revolved around Su Yi. On top of the soul puppet's expression of shock and joy, the iron soulfish, who was also quite cold, laughed dryly and said, "This kid's perception is really extraordinary. He grasped the method to adapt to the frigid water so quickly." Then, taking a deep breath and twisting his neck, the iron soulfish said faintly as he placed his withered hand on the edge of the vestibule, "Fine, let's not waste such abundant soul energy. I'll also start to seize the opportunity to reincarnate. I'll try to help this kid as soon as possible." After a long while, the pool water stopped moving, and the transparent ice crystals that fell from the sky lightly landed on the frigid water. Because of the protection of the water vapor, the ice crystals were always a distance away from Su Yi. In a short while, the sparkling and translucent water elemental qi of vitality cast a semicircular transparent light shield above Su Yi's head. The light patterns on the shield diffused, and in the dazzling white world, it was like a high-quality piece of unpolished jade, rippling with divine radiance. Whoosh! Strong winds blew, and snow fell from the sky. In the endless world, the 17-year-old Su Yi was on his way to becoming a true expert, enduring pain that ordinary people could not endure. At the same time, Duanmu Xiaoman, who had left the burial of heaven cold ground, flew past like a graceful swan. The fierce mountain peak whistled in her ears, and the incomparably swift and violent waves tightly stuck to Duanmu Xiaoman's clothes, outlining her slender waist. As her body turned lightly in the air, her figure was like lightning, and suddenly disappeared from the strange fluctuations of the burial of heaven cold ground. Heavenly Pill House, the Imperial Palace's holy land of pills. Mo and Hong elders brought Li Shi ran into the back hall of the Heavenly Pill House alone. Along the way, the alchemy disciples had already heard about the Imperial Palace's soul competition. At this time, Li Shi Ran was personally brought into the Imperial Palace by the two pill masters. One could imagine Li Shi Ran's position in the Heavenly Pill House in the future. From time to time, several disciples gathered together and whispered to each other, glancing at Li Shi Ran from time to time. Their eyes were red with envy and jealousy, like the eyes of a rabbit. As soon as she entered the hall, Li Shi Ran, who was somewhat at a loss, knelt down in front of Mo and Hong elders and said in a soft voice, "Two masters, I only have half a heaven-grade soul quality. Shi Ran knows that I am not outstanding. Thanks to Big Brother Su Yi, I was able to gain the favor of two masters. Shi Ran is already very grateful." Mo and Hong elders looked at each other, and the corners of their mouths hung a wry smile. Elder Mo shook his head and said gently, "You get up first, Shi Ran." Seeing that Li Shi Ran still didn't get up, Elder Mo felt a little surprised. He turned to look at Elder Hong and whispered, "What's wrong with her?" Elder Hong glanced at the several alchemy disciples outside the door and exchanged glances. The disciples were a little embarrassed and quickly left the corridor, no longer lingering. Humph! Taking a heavy sip of tea, Elder Hong cast a knowing look at Elder Mo and said softly, "You and I have never accepted a disciple. Now that Shi Ran has come, she will be our closed-door alchemy disciple. Those guys outside have been waiting for so many years, but they still don't have a status. They must feel uncomfortable in their hearts and will naturally vent some of their resentment on Li Shi Ran." Being seen through by Elder Hong at a glance, Li Shi Ran lowered her head, blinked her slender eyelashes, and pursed her lips tightly. After this reminder, Elder Mo clearly understood the situation. A spiritual pillar in his hand suddenly struck the door of the house. Chapter 1728. Boom! As the door was slammed shut, Elder Mo turned around with a kind smile on his face. He gently helped Leisure ran up and said in a slightly intimate tone, "Thank you. You're such a kind child. You even know how to care about the feelings of others." Leisure Ran didn't dare to raise her head when she heard this. She had always thought that it was impossible for her to become a last disciple with her cultivation, so she blushed and didn't know what to say. "You don't have to worry about it. Subrat's promise is part of it. In recent years, the two of us have indeed had the intention of accepting disciples. You have a kind heart, and in addition to the quality of your soul, purity and intelligence are even more important in the alchemy lineage. Pills can save people and also harm people. If your nature is not good, it will be difficult to refine a high-quality pill even if you are in a hurry. Instead, it will become a harmful thing." Leisure Ran gently raised her head and looked at her two masters. Her nervous mood gradually eased. Elder Hong, who was sitting on the side, closed her eyes and nodded slowly. She waved her sleeves and stood up quietly. "What's more, you are the best candidate to synthesize the heaven-commanding divine cauldron." Bang! At this moment, the gatehouse was suddenly pushed open by a fierce wave of force, and a penetrating cold air poured in an instant, and a piercing pressure immediately filled the hearts of the three people. The three people's faces changed rapidly, and looking in the direction of the cold air, they were shocked. "Palace Master, welcome. Please forgive me for not coming out to meet you." The person who came was Duanmu Xiaoman from the Burial Heaven Cold Ground. Her snow-white gauze wrapped around her curvaceous figure, and a pair of snow-white slender legs gently strode into the main hall with an indifferent expression. She went straight to the head of the table. Her right leg crossed over her left leg, revealing two snow-white long legs, extremely charming and seductive. Leisure Ran, who had always been introverted, was less mature and more immature in comparison. Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman's mature and dignified appearance, Leisure Ran was also a little intoxicated. Spreading the cold air, Duanmu Xiaoman held her chin with her jade hand and carefully looked at Leisure Ran and the two elders. "Time is of the essence. Have you talked to Shiran?" Elder Hong took a step forward. His skinny body bowed slightly under his loose robe as he said respectfully, "I just mentioned it. I'm just about to explain in detail." As soon as her voice fell, Duanmu Xiaoman gently raised her jade-like hands, crossed her arms, and turned her gaze back to Li Shiran, who was slightly embarrassed below. "Shiran, the purple flame soul cauldron was activated by you. Its fate with you. The cyan flame Een cauldron has always been in my imperial palace, but the purple flame soul cauldron is in your Li clan. Do you know why?" Li Shiran raised her chin, her moon-like eyes full of doubt, her tightly pursed red lips slightly opened, looking quite expectant. "There's a reason why the Li clan has always looked down on my heavenly command palace. When a heavenly command palace was first built, the first palace lord and your Li clan's clan leader were fellow soul cultivators. One day, my palace lord paid a visit to the Li clan, and the two of them hit it off. The two of them worked together to refine these two cauldrons, preparing to combine them into one to prove the friendship between our two clans. Therefore, these two cauldrons were injected with the remaining power of the crimson water, celestial crystal, and part of the energy of the imperial palace art." Duanmu Xiaoman's words instantly made Li Shiran's eyes light up. It turned out that the Li clan and Heavenly Command Palace had been familiar with each other for thousands of years. These two cauldrons were the product of the cooperation between the two clans. Her slightly raised chest rose and fell, and her little face suddenly flushed with nervousness. Li Shiran sniffled and leaned forward slightly. "What happened after that, Palace Lord?" After a moment of silence, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of pity and helplessly said, "Cultivators have always been proud and arrogant. Naturally, they fell apart and returned to their respective clans with their own painstaking efforts." Duanmu Xiaoman's explanation was somewhat evasive, but Li Shiran naturally knew that it had been a long time, and it was hard to tell who was right and who was wrong. After listening, her throat rolled, and she let out a deep breath. No wonder Grandpa and the others always talk about Imperial Palace with a lot of contempt. Misunderstandings are difficult to solve, passed down from generation to generation. Who knows how many generations of outstanding disciples it has harmed. Her plump and exquisite waist twisted slightly, and her long and slender legs gently touched the ground. Her hands were slightly placed in front of her chest, and a magnificent cleavage was revealed in front of everyone, and the temperature in the air rose a lot. Li Ran, who was staring intently at Duanmu Xiaoman, couldn't help but be slightly stunned. She immediately turned her head to the side and looked at the plain clothes in front of her with a slight blush. So, in your generation, to realize the legend of the Imperial Palace's divine cauldron, this matter must be done by you. Duanmu Xiaoman's pretty face twitched slightly, and her determined gaze was like a sharp knife fixed on Li Ran's body. You have the Imperial Palace's secret art and the power of the Celestial Crystal's remnant. I hope you can make good use of it, and don't let down Su Yi's good intentions. Glancing at the two elders from the corner of her eyes, Li Ran arched her beautiful back and gently opened her mouth. Ran will live up to your expectations. Her previous shy expression changed, and her delicate little face was full of determination when she mentioned Su Yi. Li Ran said with a little urgency, "Palace Master, is Brother Su Yi all right?" After Su Yi came out of the Broken Sword Sea, he spent all his time with Duanmu Xiaoman, and even the people of Lingyue Peak couldn't see him even if they wanted to. As soon as the Imperial Palace's secret art competition ended, he disappeared without a trace before he could say goodbye to Su Yi. At this time, Li Ran plucked up her courage and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, her eyes full of concern for Su Yi. "He's fine. If you want to help him, merge the Imperial Palace's divine cauldron as soon as possible. What do you need from Heavenly Artifact House? While I'm away, you two will have to trouble yourselves." Elder Mo and Elder Hong's robes trembled slightly, and the corners of their eyes moved. A trace of surprise suddenly surged in their hearts, and they couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Duanmu Xiaoman, who hadn't left Imperial Palace for decades, was going to return to the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. This explosive news would definitely cause a sensation among the top powerhouses of 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 seas. Who knew what her fans would do? "Palace Master, are you doing this for the Tianfeng battle?" Duanmu Xiaoman shrugged her shoulders, narrowed her beautiful eyes, and said lightly, "Sort of. I hope to see the finished product as soon as possible." Boom! A sudden gust of wind flashed, and terrifying air ripples surged into space, faintly overlapping with each other. In the dense light, Duanmu Xiaoman's white light intertwined, and the surrounding space began to collapse inch by inch. Her beautiful figure condensed, and in the next second, she disappeared like a light spot. Before Li Ran came to her senses, her startled eyes were full of surprise, and she retreated in panic. A pair of slightly withered palms gently pressed on Li Ran's back. It was Elder Hong and Elder Mo, and they smiled kindly. "Ran, let's begin." Chapter 1729. Without Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman, the Heavenly Drive River seemed to have become extremely quiet all of a sudden. Every day, the Tremorfront Peak was still bustling with people cultivating and researching. Everywhere was filled with abundant medicinal energy and spiritual energy. However, it wasn't as thrilling as during the Heavenly Drive River Soul competition, nor was there any earth-shattering commotion. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was standing at a certain height, had a slightly solemn expression on her face. In her eyes, the Heavenly Drive River's peak towered into the clouds and was filled with spiritual energy. Only Duanmu Xiaoman knew that there was a youth experiencing life and death experiences up there. The Heavenly Crystal's energy is berserk. That mysterious energy can't withstand it, so it often goes berserk. Only this method can slightly suppress the crimson water, heavenly crystal in your body. Slightly lowering her beautiful eyelashes, Duanmu Xiaoman gently parted the few strands of hair in front of her eyes. Her bright and deep moon-like eyes flashed with a bit of determination. Standing proudly in front of her chest, slightly moved up and down, her rippling skirt rose up high, and a pitch-black spatial light suddenly formed in front of her. Chi-Chi. Thinking about the place she was about to go, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes moved, and a touch of sadness and expectation emerged at the same time. In the blue waves, only the spatial cracks, surrounded by electric arcs, were left. Looking back at the heavenly drive river's peak once again, Duanmu Xiaoman's expression gradually became calm. Duanmu Xiaoman once again disappeared in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, leaving only a sentence that was as gentle as the wind. Sui, wait for me to come back. Barbarian City also became a lot quieter because of the Su family's departure. In the small city that was bustling in the past, the 5 local forces competed with each other openly and secretly. But with the Su family's departure, it became a little dispirited. The city was still exquisite and exquisite. Although Barbarian City wasn't as vast and abundant as 9-Star City, it still had its own fun and leisure. As the saying goes, a sparrow may be small, but it has all the essentials. Being adjacent to the Barbarian Demon Forest, it also made Barbarian City an extremely unique geographical location. There were groups of mercenaries and bandit groups everywhere in the barbaric demon forest. They provided equipment, beast crystals, monster cores, and vitality stones to ordinary martial artists and rogue cultivators. The scorching sun was high in the sky, and the temperature was scorching hot. Rolling waves of air emerged from the ground, as if forming a transparent but airtight wall. In the barbarian demon forest, the shade was deep. The dazzling sunlight shone through the thin shadows, giving the barbarian demon beasts a sense of coolness. Get ready. More than 10 filthy men who looked like mercenaries and were dressed in sturdy clothes were constantly moving in the forest. Rumble. They could hear a large group of barbaric demon beasts galloping through the barbaric demon forest in the distance, and they trampled the weeds that were half the height of a man into pieces. Da-da-da. The eyes of the barbaric demon beast, which looked like an armor of steel, glinted coldly as it walked towards the barbaric demon forest. The forest was filled with the smell of blood. Barbaric beasts gathered here all year round, and the air was filled with the aura of barbaric beasts. The mercenaries who lived with the beasts all day long also had a murderous aura and a wild nature. A burly man with a bone-deep scar on his face that extended all the way to his neck made a shushing gesture to the men behind him. Shoo! When those idiots enter the forest, we will kill them all. Boss, it seems like there's going to be a big deal today. The men behind him chuckled with a cold look in their eyes. They stuck out their red tongues and licked the tip of their swords. The burly man who was addressed as the boss was also very excited. His scarlet eyes were bloodshot, and he was as excited as a wild beast hunting its prey. On the other side, at the cliff on the other side of the barbaric demon forest, there were also traces of people passing by. Huff! A fat teenager with a neat crew cut climbed up along the edge of the cliff. Looking at the barbaric demon forest that stretched as far as the eye could see, his eyes lit up. His flushed face trembled along with his body as he pointed at the forest in front. We are here. We are here. We are finally back in the barbaric demon forest. The fat man turned around and saw that there was no one behind him. He looked to the left and right, then to the front. From afar, an extremely gentle figure floated over with the mountain wind. It was a woman in a light purple dress with a veil over her face. She was looking back with a smile. Why don't I just fly you back to the barbaric city? Why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? The fat youth patted the dust off his body and ran to the woman with a silly smile on his face. We snuck out this time. We can't let Granny find out. This time, I planned the route and the traces along the way for a long time. It wasn't easy for us to get here. We can't let all our efforts go to waste. Little sister Juana, It turned out that the woman in the light purple dress was Su Won'er, who had separated from Su Yi that day. After not seeing her for a long time, Su Won'er had grown a lot taller. She was even more slender and elegant. A strand of black hair floated in front of her forehead with a mountain wind. Her waist-length hair was casually tied together with a belt. Her limpid eyes were like the stars in the sky. The slightly developed Su Shui had already begun to show signs of growth. Even though she was wearing a not-so-tight dress, it still couldn't hide her alluring and beautiful figure. Su Won'er gently covered her red lips with her jade-like hand. She smiled gently and said, "Brother Fatty, I can also fly you up the cliff. You don't have to make things difficult for yourself." The fat man was Wang Shanwu, who had been taken away by the mysterious old woman that day. Wang Shanwu was panting as he touched his round cheeks and said, "Compared to Sister Won'er, I am still in the Yuanjin stage. Sister Won'er has improved by leaps and bounds in the past year. I don't even know when I will be able to catch up. Of course, I have to seize every opportunity to cultivate my body." His small eyes carefully sensed the changes in Su Won'er's aura. Wang Shanwu said, "I still can't sense Sister Won'er's cultivation. What level are you at?" "PFFF." Su Won'er nodded and looked at the clouds in the sky. She said faintly, "Granny said that I am already in the 7th level of the Yuan Emperor realm." Wang Shanwu's body retreated backward. His expression was instantly stupefied as he felt a numbing sensation from being electrocuted from head to toe. "Oh my, Sister Won'er, you have improved so much in just a year. Originally, I want to learn martial arts properly and protect you. I really overestimated myself. Brother Shanwu, you have already worked very hard. In the future, it will be my turn to protect Brother Shanwu." Wang Shanwu shook his head as a trace of loneliness flashed in his eyes. But in the next instant, he became extremely happy. "Your improvement is even greater than Su Yi. I reckon that if he heard about it, he would be overjoyed." Su Yi's name had always been Su Won'er's taboo. Now that Wang Shanwu mentioned it, the star-like radiance in Su Won'er's eyes dimmed. Knowing that he had misspoken, Wang Shanwu scratched the back of his head and kept apologizing to Su Won. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.